Welcome to another exciting episode on Black Magic. Today, we're exploring a captivating tale called What If All Magical Creatures in Britain Felt Harry's Pain. Age 5 and united to destroy Dursley House. Before we begin, if you enjoy our content, please support us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It helps more than you know. And now, the story awaits. Chapter 1, The Cry That Shook Britain. The cupboard under the stairs at number 4, Privet Drive felt smaller than usual that night. 5-year-old Harry Potter curled into a tight ball, trying to make himself as small as possible. His stomach cramped painfully. He hadn't eaten since yesterday morning when Aunt Petunia had allowed him half a piece of toast. His back stung where Uncle Vernon's belt had struck him repeatedly for breaking a plate while washing dishes. Freak, Uncle Vernon had spat. Worthless burden. Harry pressed his face against the thin, stained mattress to muffle his sobs. He'd learned early that crying loudly meant more punishment. "Please," Harry whispered to the darkness. "Please, someone help me." No one ever had. No teachers noticed his too large clothes or flinching at sudden movements. No neighbors questioned why such a small boy did so many chores. No one saw the bruises. Something broke inside Harry Potter that night, something deep and fundamental. A dam burst within his magical core, releasing power that had been building for years under constant stress. Green light pulsed from his small body, seeping through the cracks in the cupboard door and illuminating the hallway outside. Inside the cupboard, Harry felt a rush of warmth unlike anything he'd experienced before. It started in his chest, spread through his limbs, and then exploded outward. The cupboard door blasted off its hinges. Photographs of Dudley rattled on the walls. Windows throughout the house cracked simultaneously. The commotion jolted Vernon Dursley from his sleep. "Boy!" he roared, thundering down the stairs. "What have you done now?" But Harry couldn't answer. The green light around him intensified, and a shockwave of raw magical energy exploded outward from his small body. The wave traveled far beyond Privet Drive, beyond Surrey, beyond London, carrying with it the pure emotional imprint of a child suffering. Deep in the Welsh mountains, Firebrand the dragon matriarch jerked awake in her cavern. The ancient Hebridean Black had lived for centuries, but never had she felt such a call, a child's magic crying out in purest distress. She raised her massive head, nostrils flaring. Something ancient and protective awakened in her blood. "Hatchling," she rumbled in the language of dragons. The mountain trembled with her rising fury. In the goblin tunnels beneath Gringotts, Hookfong paused mid-swing. The warhammer in his scarred hands trembled as the magical shockwave passed through the bedrock. The old warrior dropped his training weapon and clutched his chest. "What magic is this?" he growled to the empty chamber. His battle-hardened heart recognized the call, a youngling in peril. Goblins valued their children above all treasures. To feel such pain from a wizard child. Hookfong bared his pointed teeth and began strapping on his armor. In the forbidden forest, Stargazer the centaur elder looked up from his star charts. The night sky blurred as magical energy rippled through the trees, bending moonlight. The white-haired centaur placed a weathered hand against an ancient oak to steady himself. "The stars spoke true," he whispered. "The child of prophecy suffers." Around him, every centaur in the herd had frozen, their heads turned in the same direction, toward Surrey. Stargazer stamped his hoof. "The herd gathers now." In kitchens across wizard homes throughout Britain, house elves suddenly straightened, their large ears twitching. At Hogwarts, dozens of elves stopped their nighttime cleaning, dropping rags and pots with loud clangs. Among them, one elf named Whisper had been subtly organizing dissent for years. Now he stood atop a table, his usually timid voice ringing with conviction. "Little wizard child calls us. Little wizard child with special magic. We must go." In the Black Lake, Riverscale the Mare Chieftain surfaced with a splash. Other Mare people followed, their normally hostile eyes wide with concern. "The land child's pain reaches even the depths," Riverscale hissed in Mermish. "Such strength in one so young. All across Britain, magical creatures stirred, unicorns raised their heads from forest pools, pixies swarmed in agitated clouds, even the giant squid in Hogwarts Lake pressed tentacles against the shore facing south. Each felt the unmistakable magical signature of Harry Potter, marked by prophecy, crying out in pain. And each creature, in their own way, answered. Vernon Dursley grabbed for Harry's arm, but recoiled as the green energy burned his meaty hand. "I've had enough of your freakishness," he bellowed, face purpling with rage. "You'll regret the day you were dumped on our doorstep." Harry stared up at his uncle, terrified but also strangely calm. The energy swirling around him felt protective, like an invisible shield. For the first time in his short life, something was standing between him and punishment. Upstairs, Dudley wailed and Petunia screeched. The house itself seemed to groan, foundation stones shifting. "Vernon!" Petunia screamed from the top of the stairs. "The windows! All of them, shattered! It's the boy!" Vernon shouted back, spittle flying from his lips. He turned back to Harry, raised his hand to strike, and froze at the sound of something massive landing on the roof. The entire house shuddered. Plaster dust rained from the ceiling. A deep, rumbling growl vibrated through the walls, rattling the remaining intact windows. "What the devil?" Vernon began. The front door exploded inward, reduced to splinters. Where the doorway had been stood a goblin warrior in full battle armor, wielding a wicked-looking axe. Behind him, crowding the front garden, stood a delegation of creatures out of nightmare, or fairy tale. A house elf squeezed past the goblin's armored legs and pointed a gnarled finger at Vernon. "You hurt wizard child. Wizard child who called to all creatures." Vernon's face went from purple to chalk white in an instant. You freaks get out of my house. I'll call the police." A low, dangerous laugh came from above, and the ceiling creaked ominously. "Call whoever you wish, human," rumbled a dragon's voice, audible even through the roof. "They will find only ashes." The goblin stepped forward, battle-axe gleaming. "The child. Where is he?" Vernon backed up, pushing Harry behind him, not to protect the boy, but to hide the evidence. "There's no child here. Only my son, upstairs with his mother." "Get out." The house elf narrowed his huge eyes. "Whisper smells the lies. Whisper smells the blood of wizard child." Harry, still glowing faintly green, stepped out from behind Vernon. The moment the creatures saw him, small, bruised, with a cut lip and taped glasses, a collective growl rose from the assembled delegation. "Young one," the goblin said, his harsh voice surprisingly gentle. "I am Hook Fong, warrior of the Horde. We have come for you." Harry stared, wide-eyed. "For me?" The house elf, Whisper, approached Harry slowly. All creatures felt young wizard's pain. All creatures came. Harry looked from the elf to the goblin to the shadowy forms of centaurs visible through the doorway. "But why?" A new voice entered the conversation, melodious, wise, and ancient. A centaur with a white-streaked coat and silver hair ducked to fit his torso through the doorway. "Because, Harry Potter, you called. And we answered." Vernon chose this moment to make a desperate lunge for Harry, grabbing his nephew's thin arm. "Now see here. This boy is my nephew and my responsibility." "You have no right," he never finished his sentence. The house elf snapped his fingers, and Vernon Dursley froze in place, his mouth working silently. Hook Fong the goblin stepped forward and gently, with surprising care for his warrior hands, detached Vernon's fingers from Harry's arm. "No, human. The child belongs to himself. And tonight, he has asked for help." The centaur, Stargazer, extended his hand to Harry. "Come, young one. There is a sanctuary prepared for you, where no human will hurt you again." Harry hesitated, looking from the frozen Vernon to the staircase where Petunia and Dudley cowered. "They're my family," he whispered. Hook Fong shook his head, disgust evident in his gravelly voice. Family does not do this. He gestured to Harry's bruises, his malnourished frame, the cupboard with its broken door. Will I have to come back? Harry asked. The dragon's voice rumbled from above, making the light fixtures swing. No, hatchling. This place will not exist to return to. Fear and hope warred on Harry's face. Where will I go? Whisper tugged gently on Harry's oversized shirt. Safe place. Place where all creatures help young wizard grow strong. Harry took a deep breath, and for the first time that night, smiled tentatively. Okay. He placed his small hand in Stargazer's weathered one. The centaur lifted Harry easily onto his back. Wait, Harry said suddenly. My things, what things do you wish to take, young one? Stargazer asked. Harry looked embarrassed. I have a blanket. It was my mum's, I think. And a broken toy soldier I found. They're in the cupboard. Whisper disappeared into the cupboard and emerged seconds later with a tattered baby blanket and a plastic soldier missing an arm. He handed them reverently to Harry, who clutched them to his chest. Now we go, said Hook Fong. And leave nothing behind. As Stargazer carried Harry from the house, the boy looked back one last time at the place that had never been a home. The green energy still surrounded him, pulsing more softly now. What about Aunt Petunia and Dudley? He asked. Hook Fong growled, the woman and her spawn will be released from our magic once we are gone. They have time to flee. Outside, Harry gasped. The entire street was filled with magical creatures. Centaurs formed a protective ring around the house. House elves perched on garden walls. Goblins stood in formation, weapons ready. And atop the house, barely visible in the night sky, crouched an enormous dragon, her scales black as midnight, yellow eyes glowing like lamps. All these creatures came for me? Harry whispered. Your magic called, Stargazer explained as he trotted carefully through the assembled creatures. Never before has such a cry resonated with all magical beings simultaneously. The centaurs felt your pain in the stars. The dragons felt it in the ancient magic. The house elves felt it in their bond to wizardkind. Firebrand the dragon matriarch leaned down from the roof, her massive head larger than a car. Harry fought the urge to shrink back as one enormous yellow eye examined him. Hatchling, Firebrand rumbled, her hot breath washing over him. You are the one the prophecies speak of. Your magic recognized your peril and called out in the oldest way, the way of kin in danger. Harry stared at the dragon in awe. I didn't know I had magic. A ripple of shock went through the assembled creatures. They didn't tell him, Whisper squeaked indignantly. Bad humans didn't tell Wizard Child he was wizard. Hook Fong spat on the ground. Typical wizard arrogance. Hide magic from their young until they decide it's convenient. Peace, said Stargazer. The child will learn all in time. Now, we must leave. The Ministry will have detected such a massive surge of magic. At a signal from Firebrand, the creatures began to move back, creating a clear path away from Privet Drive. Young one, the dragon said to Harry. These humans hurt you for the last time. Do you wish to watch what happens to their den, or would you prefer to look away? Harry thought for a moment. I want to watch. Stargazer moved to a safe distance, and Harry turned to see number 4, Privet Drive for the last time. Vernon remained frozen inside. Petunia had apparently regained enough courage to drag Dudley out the back door. Harry could see them running across neighboring gardens. Firebrand rose to her full height atop the house, wings spreading wide against the night sky. She took a deep breath, her chest expanding, and then exhaled a stream of fire so hot it appeared blue at its center. The dragon's fire engulfed the house, but rather than setting it ablaze normally, the magical flame seemed to devour the structure, consuming brick, wood, and glass in seconds. Where number 4 had stood, only a smoking crater remained. Harry felt no sadness, only a strange sense of closure. They can't hurt me anymore, he said softly. No, young one, Hookfang agreed, coming to walk beside Stargazer. And soon you will be strong enough that no one can hurt you again. As the remarkable procession moved away from Privet Drive, neighbors began to emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion and the unnatural fire. But what they saw, if they saw anything at all, no one could later agree upon. Some claimed to have seen shadows moving across gardens. Others insisted they'd glimpsed enormous winged shapes against the moon. By morning, the authorities would be baffled by the perfect circular crater where the Dursley home had stood, with no explanation for the fire that left no trace of house, furnishings, or foundations. Miles away in a castle in Scotland, Albus Dumbledore was awakened by the frantic beeping of silver instruments on his desk. He hurried from his bed chambers, still in nightclothes, to find several of his monitoring devices spinning wildly, emitting smoke, or melting altogether. The headmaster's face went ashen. These were the devices tied to Harry Potter and the blood wards at Privet Drive. No, he whispered. It's not possible. A moment later, his fireplace flared green, and Minerva McGonagall's head appeared in the flames. Albus. The Ministry sensors are going crazy. Some sort of magical explosion in Surrey, and reports of dragon fire. Dumbledore was already reaching for his wand. Alert the order, Minerva. I fear the worst has happened. As Dumbledore and his hastily assembled allies apparat to Little Whinging, they found chaos. Ministry obliviators were already working to modify the memories of Muggle neighbors. Magical law enforcement wizards combed the area for clues. And where number 4, Privet Drive had stood, there was nothing but a perfect, smoking circle. Albus. Arthur Weasley rushed over, his normally cheerful face grave. What happened? Where's the boy? Dumbledore approached the crater slowly, feeling the residual magic. His face grew more troubled with each step. This was no Death Eater attack, he said quietly. This magic is ancient. Primal. Amelia Bones from the Department of Magical Law Enforcement joined them, looking grim. Dumbledore, we've got reports of creature sightings all over Surrey tonight. Centaurs, goblins, even a dragon. What in Merlin's name is going on? Before Dumbledore could respond, a young Auror ran up, looking pale. Ma'am. We found Vernon Dursley. Where? Bones demanded. In the back garden of number 6. He appears physically unharmed but catatonic. And, his right hand shows burns consistent with contact with raw magic. Dumbledore closed his eyes briefly. And the boy? Harry Potter? The Auror shook his head. No sign of him. But we found this. He held up a child-sized shoe, worn nearly through at the sole. Dumbledore took the shoe, turning it over in his hands. It was at least 2 sizes too large for a 5-year-old. We need to find Petunia and Dudley Dursley, he said. They may know what happened to Harry. Already located, Bones replied. They're at Petunia's sister-in-law's house in Hampshire. Hysterical, both of them. Going on about freaks and monsters taking the boy. McGonagall, who had joined them, gave Dumbledore a piercing look. I told you they were the worst sort of muggles, Albus. What did they do to that child? Dumbledore had no answer. The monitoring charms he'd placed should have alerted him to any serious abuse. Unless Harry's own magic had somehow been masking it, protecting the blood wards at the cost of his own safety. We need to find Harry, Dumbledore said finally. Whatever has happened here tonight, the boy must be located. Meanwhile, Harry Potter was experiencing the strangest night of his young life. Riding on Stargazer's back, he traveled through woods and fields, surrounded by an honor guard of magical creatures. Above, Firebrand the dragon flew in wide circles, keeping watch. Where are we going? Harry asked Whisper, who had claimed a spot riding behind him on the centaur's back. To the wild sanctuary, the house elf replied. Place where creatures go when hurt or hunted by wizards. Place of old magic. Harry frowned. But, aren't I a wizard too? Will I be allowed? Hook Fong, marching alongside, gave a gravelly laugh. You called, child. All creatures answered. You are the first wizard in centuries to be welcomed into the sanctuary by unanimous consent. They traveled through the night, using paths Harry couldn't have seen without the creatures guiding him. Sometimes they moved through dense forests, other times across moonlit moors. Occasionally, Harry thought he glimpsed stone circles or strange, glowing mushrooms marking their path. Despite the extraordinary circumstances and the lingering pain of his injuries, Harry eventually dozed off, lulled by the gentle rhythm of Stargazer's movement. When he awoke, the sun was rising, casting golden light across a hidden valley nestled between steep mountains. Welcome, Harry Potter, said Stargazer, to the Valley of Concordia, the wild sanctuary. Harry gasped. The valley below seemed to contain entire ecosystems in miniature. One section was thick forest where he could see centaurs moving among the trees. Another featured a deep blue lake where merpeople surfaced occasionally. Rock formations housed what looked like goblin dwellings, while dragons perched on cliff ledges high above. Throughout the valley, magical creatures of every description went about their business in apparent harmony. I didn't know places like this existed, Harry whispered. Few wizards do, Hook Fong said. We've kept it hidden for centuries, ever since the first restrictions on dangerous creatures were passed by your ministry. As they descended into the valley, Harry noticed something strange. Despite the variety of terrain and the diversity of creatures, everything seemed to radiate outward from a central point, an enormous ancient oak tree that dominated the valley floor. Its trunk must have been 30 feet across, its canopy spreading wide enough to shade several acres. The heart tree, Whisper explained, seeing Harry's gaze fixed on it. Old magic lives there. Very old. Older than wizards. The procession moved toward the heart tree, and as they approached, Harry saw that creatures from all parts of the valley were gathering beneath its branches. The crowd parted to make way for Stargazer, carrying Harry. At the base of the tree stood a stone dais, and on it waited 3 figures, Firebrand, who must have flown ahead, a merperson supported in what looked like a floating bubble of water, and a small, wizened goblin whose armor looked even more ancient than Hookfang's. Stargazer stopped before the dais, and Hookfang gently helped Harry dismount. His legs trembled, partly from the long ride and partly from nervousness at being the center of attention for so many magical beings. Approach, Harry Potter, Firebrand rumbled. Harry stepped forward, still clutching his mother's blanket and the broken toy soldier. The ancient goblin spoke first. I am Grimclaw, elder of the goblin nation. You have called, wizard child, and we have answered. But now you must choose. Will you return to wizard kind, or will you accept the protection of the sanctuary? Harry bit his lip. If I stay here, can I learn magic? The merperson, River Scale, spoke next, his voice magically translated. Different magic than wizards teach, young one. Older magic. Truer magic. The magic of earth and water, fire and air. Will I have to be alone? Harry asked, his voice small. Firebrand leaned down, her massive head coming close to Harry's level. No, hatchling. You will have many teachers, many guardians. You will learn the ways of all magical creatures who choose to teach you. Harry looked back at Whisper and Hookfang, who had stood by him since his rescue. And my friends can stay with me? Whisper beamed, his large ears wiggling with happiness. Whisper stays with young wizard. Whisper teaches house elf magic. Hookfang thumped his chest with a fist. The goblin nation offers a warrior's oath of protection. I will remain as your shield and tutor. Stargazer stepped forward. The stars have spoken. I will guide your learning of centaur wisdom. One by one, representatives from different magical species came forward, offering protection, teaching, companionship. Unicorns, pixies, even a young griffin, all pledged to help raise and train the boy who had called to them in his moment of greatest need. Harry's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of overwhelmed gratitude. "I choose to stay," he said. "I want to learn everything." Firebrand nodded, her yellow eyes gleaming with approval. "Then it is decided. From this day forward, Harry Potter is under the protection of the Concordia Covenant. He will learn the ways of all magical beings, not just wizards. He will grow in power and wisdom. And when the time comes for him to face his destiny, he will not face it alone." The ancient goblin raised a gnarled hand. "But be warned, young one. The wizard called Dumbledore will search for you. The Ministry will hunt for you. They will not understand what has happened here." Harry's face hardened with a determination unusual in one so young. "I'm not going back. Not to the Dursleys, not to anyone who'd leave me with them." "And so you shall not," Firebrand declared. "Now, come. You need healing, food, and rest. Tomorrow, your education begins." As the crowd dispersed, Harry was led to a cozy dwelling built into the roots of the heart tree itself. Inside, he found a bed of soft mosses, walls lined with strange glowing fungi that provided gentle light, and a table laden with food. Whisper fussed around him, insisting he eat before anything else. The house elf prepared a plate with small portions of nourishing foods, explaining that Harry's stomach would need time to adjust to regular meals. As Harry ate, Hookfang and Stargazer discussed plans for his education. "The child needs physical training," Hookfang insisted. "Look how thin his arms are. No strength to wield even the smallest blade." "Mind must come before muscle," Stargazer countered. "He must learn the wisdom of the stars, the patterns of magic." "He needs healing first," came a new voice, melodious and ethereal. Harry looked up to see a unicorn stepping gracefully into the dwelling, her coat shimmering like moonlight. "I am Silverhoof," the unicorn said. "I will help heal your body, young wizard, while others begin training your mind in magic." Harry set down his spoon, overwhelmed again. "Why are you all helping me? I'm nobody special." The four creatures exchanged glances. "There is a prophecy," Stargazer began slowly. "Many prophecies," Hookfang corrected. "Wizard prophecies, centaur prophecies, goblin prophecies, dragon prophecies," Whisper added, counting on his long fingers. "All point to a child marked by lightning," Silverhoof said gently, indicating Harry's scar. "A child with the power to change the relationship between wizards and magical creatures forever." Harry touched his scar self-consciously. "But I'm just Harry." Firebrand's voice came from outside, where she lay curled around the heart tree's massive trunk. "No child is just anything, hatchling. But you carry old magic in your blood, the protection of sacrifice. That, combined with your natural power and the unique circumstance of your upbringing, makes you different from any wizard before you." Harry yawned suddenly, the excitement and trauma of the day catching up with him. "Rest now, young one," Silverhoof said. "Tomorrow is soon enough for prophecies and training." Whisper helped Harry into the moss bed, which turned out to be surprisingly comfortable. The house elf carefully placed Harry's mother's blanket over him, and set the broken toy soldier on a small shelf carved into the root wall. "Whisper stays close," the elf promised. "No bad dreams come here. Heart Tree keeps them away." As Harry drifted toward sleep, he heard the creatures still talking softly. "The Ministry will increase patrols," Hookfang was saying. "They'll search for the boy." "Let them search," Firebrand rumbled. "The sanctuary has remained hidden for millennia. Our combined magics will keep it so." "Dumbledore is no ordinary wizard," Stargazer warned. "He will not give up easily." "Then we must ensure the child is ready when he is found," Silverhoof replied. "Ready to choose his own path." Harry's last thought before sleep claimed him was that for the first time in his memory, he felt safe. Whatever came tomorrow, training, magic, prophecies, he would face it surrounded by friends who had come when he called. The next morning, Harry woke to sunlight filtering through the roots of the heart tree. For a moment, he thought he'd dreamed everything, the rescue, the magical creatures, the hidden valley. Then he saw Whisper curled up on a small cushion nearby, and remembered. "Good morning, young wizard," Whisper said cheerfully, popping up as soon as he saw Harry was awake. "Feeling better?" Harry sat up, surprised to realize that he did feel better. The cuts and bruises from Uncle Vernon's belt had faded considerably overnight. "Unicorn magic," Whisper explained, seeing Harry's confused expression. "Silverhoof came while young wizard slept. Put healing horn over worst hurts." Harry climbed out of bed, marveling at the absence of pain. "What happens now?" "Breakfast first," Whisper insisted. "Then council wants to see young wizard. Make plan for teaching." After a hearty breakfast of fruits, nuts, and something like porridge that Whisper called earth bread, Harry followed the house elf outside. The morning sun filled the valley, illuminating the extraordinary diversity of the wild sanctuary. In daylight, Harry could see even more clearly how different regions accommodated different magical species, from mist-shrouded groves perfect for unicorns to rocky outcroppings where griffins nested. Magical creatures went about their business, many pausing to watch Harry with curious eyes. Some nodded respectfully. A few young ones, pixies and fairy-like beings, darted close to examine him before zooming away in fits of giggles. Whisper led Harry back to the stone dais beneath the heart tree, where a larger council had assembled. Firebrand and Stargazer were there, along with Hookfong and Riverscale. They were joined by Silverhoof the unicorn, a stern-looking griffin with golden feathers, a small delegation of what Harry thought might be Vila, and several other creatures Harry couldn't identify. "The Council of Concordia," Whisper whispered. "Leaders of all creature kinds in Sanctuary." Harry approached nervously, keenly aware that he was the only human in the entire valley. Firebrand spoke first. "Harry Potter. Today begins your new life. The Council has discussed your education, and each species has offered to teach you what they can of their magic." Harry's eyes widened. "I can learn all different kinds of magic." The Golden Griffin, who introduced himself as Swiftclaw, ruffled his feathers importantly. "Not all humans can learn creature magics. But your core is unusual. Adaptive. We believe you will be receptive to multiple magical traditions. Your training begins today," Stargazer said. "But first, you must understand why we have brought you here, beyond saving you from those abusive humans." Hookfong stepped forward, holding what looked like a carved stone tablet. "For centuries, wizards have oppressed magical creatures. They classify us as beings or beasts according to their convenience. They restrict our movements, our rights, our access to our own magic." Riverscale, floating in his water bubble, continued, "The Mere people remember when we could travel freely between all waters. Now we are confined to designated lakes and coastal areas, hidden from muggles, controlled by the Ministry. Centaurs once roamed all forests," Stargazer added. "Now we are restricted to certain territories, watched constantly." One by one, each creature representative spoke of restrictions, prejudices, and injustices perpetrated by wizarding kind against their species. Harry listened, growing increasingly troubled. "That's terrible. But what can I do? I'm just one person, and I don't even know magic yet." Firebrand lowered her massive head. "There is a prophecy, hatchling. Many prophecies, in fact. They speak of a human child, marked by lightning, who would be raised by creatures and bridge the divide between our worlds. The wizards have their own prophecy about you," Silverhoof added gently. "It speaks of your confrontation with the dark wizard who killed your parents." Harry's hand flew to his scar. "Voldemort? He killed my parents?" A ripple of discomfort went through the assembled creatures at the name. "You know of him?" Hookfong asked, surprised. "No," Harry admitted. "My aunt and uncle told me my parents died in a car crash. They said my dad was drunk." His face darkened. They lied about everything. James and Lily Potter were powerful wizards, Stargazer said. They died protecting you from the Dark One. Your mother's sacrifice, in particular, created the blood protection that lives in your skin. Harry clutched the blanket he'd brought from Privet Drive. This was hers. Silverhoof approached and touched the blanket gently with her horn. It glowed briefly. Yes. Her magic lingers here. A small piece of her protection. Harry hugged the blanket tighter. Young wizard, Whisper said, patting Harry's arm. Mother's protection saved you then. Creature magic will make you stronger now. Ready for when Dark Wizard returns. Returns? Harry looked alarmed. But he's dead, isn't he? The council members exchanged glances. Not dead, Firebrand rumbled. Diminished. Disembodied. But his magic persists in the world. Dragonkind can sense it. The stars speak of his return, Stargazer added gravely. Harry took a deep breath. It was a lot to take in, magic, prophecies, his parents' murder, a dark wizard who might return. But looking around at the creatures who had rescued him, who had answered his desperate call for help, he felt a determination rising within him. Teach me, he said simply. Teach me everything. Firebrand's massive mouth curved in what might have been a smile. That is the spirit, hatchling. Now, we begin. The council dissolved, with various creatures coming forward to explain Harry's training schedule. He would spend mornings with Stargazer, learning centaur astronomy and divination. Afternoons would be split between physical training with Hookfang and elemental magic with Riverscale. Evenings would include healing magic with Silverhoof and what Whisper called practical skills from the House Elves. What about dragon magic? Harry asked, looking up at Firebrand. The dragon matriarch rumbled with amusement. Dragon magic is not learned in days or weeks, hatchling. When you are ready, when your magical core has strengthened and your mind has expanded, then we will begin. As the council dispersed, Harry found himself surrounded by his primary teachers, Stargazer, Hookfang, Whisper, Silverhoof, and Riverscale. Together, they would form his core education team, with other creatures contributing specialized knowledge as he progressed. One more thing, Hookfang said, reaching into a pouch at his belt. He pulled out a small, rune-covered stone. This is a tracker blocker. It will prevent wizard methods of locating you. Keep it with you always. Harry accepted the stone, feeling its slight warmth against his palm. Will wizards really try to find me? Dumbledore already searches, Stargazer confirmed. His magic reaches out, seeking traces of yours. But the sanctuary shields you, and this stone will hide your signature when you eventually venture beyond our boundaries. Harry tucked the stone into his pocket. I'm not going back, he said firmly. Not to the Dursleys, not to Dumbledore. This is my home now. Silverhoof nuzzled his shoulder gently. And so it shall be, for as long as you wish it. Over the following days, Harry settled into his new life at the Wild Sanctuary. Each morning began with Stargazer's lessons beneath the Heart Tree, learning to read the movements of stars and planets, to understand how celestial magic influenced earth magic. All magic flows in patterns, the centaur explained. Wizardkind has forgotten this fundamental truth. They segment magic into arbitrary subjects, transfiguration, charms, potions. But true magic is unified, following the same cosmic patterns reflected in the stars. Harry proved an apt pupil, his young mind absorbing concepts that adult wizards often struggled with. His afternoons with Hookfang were more physically demanding. Stand straight, the goblin warrior would bark. A wizard who cannot defend himself without magic is only half a wizard. Harry learned basic combat stances, how to fall without injury, how to use his small size as an advantage rather than a limitation. Though exhausting, these lessons helped channel the anger and hurt from his years with the Dursleys into something productive. With Riverscale, Harry discovered his natural affinity for water magic. Most unusual, the Mare Chieftain commented after Harry successfully created a sphere of water that hovered above his palm on his third attempt. Wizard kind typically requires wands to manipulate elements. Is that good? Harry asked, concentrating to maintain the water sphere. Very good, River Scale confirmed. It suggests your magic remained flexible, despite attempts to suppress it. Or perhaps because of those attempts. Evenings with Silverhoof were Harry's favorite time. The unicorn's gentle presence soothed his lingering emotional wounds as surely as her magic healed his physical ones. Magic responds to emotion, she taught him. Anger, fear, love, all shape the form magic takes when released. Learn to understand your emotions, not suppress them, and your magic will grow stronger. Late evenings belonged to Whisper and the House Elves, who taught Harry practical magic, how to clean without spells, how to find food in the forest, how to move silently, how to hide in plain sight. House Elves know many secrets, Whisper confided. Wizards never notice what happens right under their noses. Throughout it all, Harry's magical strength grew exponentially. Away from the suppressive environment of Privet Drive, nourished by good food and surrounded by supportive teachers, his natural abilities flourished. 2 weeks after his arrival, while practicing elemental magic with River Scale, Harry inadvertently caused a nearby boulder to shatter when his water sphere expanded too rapidly. River Scale's eyes widened. That was not water magic. Harry stared at the shattered rock, equally surprised. What was it? Raw magical power, came Firebrand's voice from behind them. The dragon matriarch had been observing the lesson. Your core expands, hatchling. Soon, we must begin teaching you control. That evening, a special council meeting was called. Harry's teachers reported on his progress, all agreeing that his magical development was exceeding expectations. The child learns at an extraordinary rate, Stargazer reported. His understanding of celestial patterns already exceeds that of centaur foals twice his age. His physical discipline improves daily, Hookfong added. Though he remains frustratingly reluctant to strike even in practice. The goblin sounded both annoyed and grudgingly proud of this fact. His elemental affinity grows stronger, River Scale said. Today's incident with the boulder demonstrates the need for advanced containment training. Firebrand nodded her massive head. The time has come to test his magical capacity more thoroughly. Tomorrow, bring the hatchling to the Dragon's Crag. We will begin core stabilization. Meanwhile, the search for Harry Potter had thrown the wizarding world into turmoil. The Daily Prophet's headlines grew increasingly frantic. Boy who lived missing, ministry baffled, Dursley home destroyed by magical fire, creature uprising suspected in Potter disappearance, Dumbledore faces questions about Potter's placement. The last headline particularly troubled Albus Dumbledore as he sat in his office, surrounded by failed tracking devices. 2 weeks of constant searching had yielded nothing. The blood wards were gone. Location spells failed. Even Fawkes had been unable to find the boy. Most disturbing were the reports from Vernon Dursley, who had finally regained the ability to speak after a week of magical treatment at St. Mungo's. His account of magical creatures invading his home and taking Harry had been dismissed by many as trauma-induced delusion. But Dumbledore knew better. A coordinated action by multiple magical species, he mused to Minerva McGonagall, who sat across from his desk. Unprecedented in modern history. But why? McGonagall pressed. Why would magical creatures, traditionally at odds with each other, unite to take Potter? Dumbledore's eyes lost their twinkle. I fear we may have gravely underestimated the bond between magical creatures and magical children. The reports suggest Harry experienced a magical outburst of extraordinary magnitude that night. From what that awful Dursley man admitted under Veritaserum, it's no wonder, McGonagall said grimly. A cupboard, Albus. They kept him in a cupboard. Barely fed him. Beat him. How could your monitoring charms miss such abuse? Dumbledore looked suddenly every one of his many years. I fear Harry's own magic may have adapted to hide his suffering, to protect the blood wards at all costs. A remarkable feat of self-preservation magic, and a terrible indictment of my failure to check on him personally. What do we do now? McGonagall asked. The Ministry talks of classifying this as a hostile action by magical creatures. They're already proposing increased restrictions, punitive measures. That would be disastrous, Dumbledore said sharply. If magical creatures across Britain have indeed united to protect Harry Potter, antagonizing them further could lead to open conflict. He rose and began pacing. No, we must proceed carefully. Find Harry, yes, but not to forcibly return him to a situation that clearly failed him. We must understand what has happened and why the creatures felt compelled to intervene. And if he's happy where he is? McGonagall asked quietly. If they're treating him well? Dumbledore stopped pacing. Then we have much to learn about magical cooperation, Minerva. And much to atone for. Back at the Wild Sanctuary, Harry stood at the edge of Dragon's Crag, a towering rock formation overlooking the valley. Beside him, Firebrand watched as he attempted to channel his growing magical power. Focus, hatchling, the dragon instructed. Feel the magic in your core. Not as something separate from yourself, but as an extension of your being. Harry closed his eyes, concentrating. Over the past 3 weeks, he'd grown stronger physically and magically. His too thin frame had filled out with proper nutrition and exercise. His magic, no longer suppressed, surged through him like a living thing. Following Firebrand's instructions, he reached deep within himself, finding the wellspring of energy that had called to the magical creatures on that desperate night at Privet Drive. Now, Firebrand rumbled, release a controlled portion. Imagine it as light flowing from your hands. Harry extended his palms and focused. Green light, the same color that had surrounded him during his rescue, began to glow between his fingers. Good, Firebrand approved. Now shape it. Give it form. Harry concentrated harder, picturing a sphere similar to the water exercises he practiced with River Scale. The green light condensed, forming a perfect glowing orb above his hands. Excellent control, hatchling. Now, channel your intent through it. What do you wish this magic to do? Harry thought for a moment. I want it to protect. Like it protected me from Uncle Vernon. The sphere pulsed brighter, expanding slightly. Feel that intention filling the magic, Firebrand instructed. Protection is one of the oldest, strongest magical purposes. As Harry focused on protection, memories of his life with the Dursleys surfaced, the cupboard, the hunger, the fear. But now, instead of pain, these memories fueled his determination. Never again would he be helpless. Never again would he suffer in silence. The sphere between his hands suddenly flashed brilliantly, expanding into a translucent green shield that enveloped him completely. The magic felt warm, comfortable, like being wrapped in his mother's blanket. Firebrand watched with gleaming eyes. Well done, hatchling. You've created a protection ward, something most adult wizards require complex spellwork to achieve. Harry maintained the shield for several minutes before it gradually faded. He lowered his hands, tired but exhilarated. Was that wandless magic? He asked. Hookfang said wizards need wands. Most do, Firebrand confirmed. Wands focus and direct their magic, compensating for lack of innate control. But you are learning magic the old way, the creature way. Your intent and emotion shape the magic directly. Harry beamed with pride. So I'm doing creature magic, not wizard magic. Firebrand made a rumbling sound that might have been laughter. Magic is magic, hatchling. The divisions are artificial. What matters is how you connect with it, how you understand it. She stretched her enormous wings. Tomorrow, we begin dragon magic proper. It requires a different kind of focus, one based in elemental mastery and ancient bloodlines. As they descended from Dragon's Crag, Harry spotted a commotion near the heart tree. Creatures were gathering, their postures suggesting excitement or alarm. What's happening? He asked. Firebrand narrowed her eyes. The boundary wards have detected intruders. Wizard kind approaches the outer perimeter. Harry's heart raced. Dumbledore? Perhaps, Firebrand rumbled. Come. The council will decide how to proceed. They hurried to the Heart Tree, where Hookfang, Stargazer, Whisper, Silverhoof, and Riverscale already waited with other council members. Ministry Aurors, Hookfang reported grimly. A dozen, with ward breakers and creature specialists. They've detected traces of magical activity in the region. Can they find the sanctuary? Harry asked, worried. Stargazer shook his head. Not easily. The valley is protected by magic older than the ministry itself. But their presence so close is concerning. They search for you, young wizard, Whisper said, wringing his long fingers. Ministry says all creatures must surrender Harry Potter or face consequences. Harry felt a surge of anger. They can't force me to go back. No, Silverhoof agreed, they cannot. You are under our protection now. Firebrand addressed the council. We anticipated this. The wizard authorities would eventually narrow their search. The question is, do we engage or evade? Opinions divided among the council members. Some advocated complete isolation, strengthening the sanctuary's wards and waiting for the ministry to give up. Others suggested a more proactive approach, sending representatives to negotiate, explaining Harry's situation and the circumstances of his rescue. Harry listened to the debate, then stepped forward. Can I say something? The creatures fell silent, turning to him. I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me, Harry said firmly. Not you, and not even them. They're just doing their job, looking for a missing kid. He took a deep breath. But I also don't want to go back. This is my home now. You're my family. Several creatures made sounds of approval at this declaration. What if, Harry suggested, we let them know I'm safe, but not where I am? Just enough so they stop hunting, but not enough that they can find me. Stargazer stroked his beard thoughtfully. A message, perhaps through an intermediary they would trust. Not Dumbledore, Hookfang growled. He placed the child with abusers. The goblins of Gringotts maintain formal relations with wizard kind, Riverscale pointed out. Could they not convey such a message without revealing our location? This suggestion sparked new discussion. Eventually, a plan formed. A delegation from Gringotts, officially neutral in wizard creature affairs, would deliver a message to the ministry. Harry Potter was safe, under the protection of magical creatures who had rescued him from abuse, and would return to Wizarding Society when he chose to, not before. To prove his well-being, Harry would provide a magical signature and a brief written statement. The goblins would verify both as authentic but would not reveal the sanctuary's location. Will it work? Harry asked Hookfang as the goblin prepared the necessary documents. It may ease their immediate concerns, Hookfang replied. But Dumbledore and your ministry are stubborn. They will not simply forget the boy who lived. Harry signed his name on the parchment Hookfang presented, then placed his palm on a special crystal that recorded his magical signature, proof he was alive and unharmed. I just want to be left alone to learn, Harry said. I don't understand why they care so much about one kid. Stargazer placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. Because, young one, to them you are not just any child. You are a symbol, a beacon of hope from the dark times. Your disappearance threatens not only their plans for you but their very narrative of victory. Harry frowned. So I'm important because of something that happened when I was a baby? Something I don't even remember. That is the way of wizard kind, Firebrand rumbled. They place great importance on prophecies and chosen ones. They have built many expectations around you. Well, Harry said decisively, they'll just have to be disappointed. I'm staying here. As the goblin delegation departed with Harry's message, the council dispersed. Protective patrols were increased around the sanctuary's perimeter, but the immediate crisis seemed averted. That night, as Harry prepared for sleep in his dwelling beneath the heart tree, Whisper brought him a special gift, a hand-carved wooden box. For young wizard's treasures, the house elf explained. Safer than shelf. Harry carefully placed his mother's blanket and the toy soldier inside. As he did, he noticed a third item in the box, a small, irregular piece of rough stone. What's this? He asked. Whisper's large eyes grew solemn. Piece of Privet Drive house. To remember what young wizard overcame. To remember the night all creatures answered call. Harry picked up the stone fragment, feeling its weight in his palm. He thought of the cupboard, the years of neglect and abuse, the desperate cry that had somehow reached across Britain to touch the hearts of magical creatures. Thank you, Whisper, he said softly. I won't forget. He placed all three items in the box and closed the lid. Outside, a dragon silhouette circled against the star-filled sky. Centaur hooves echoed through the forest. Merfolk sang in the deep lake. Goblins stood watch on rocky outcrops. House elves moved silently through the heart tree's branches. All keeping vigil over the boy they had answered, the child who had called in the language of pure magic and pain, a language every magical creature understood. Harry Potter slept peacefully, surrounded by his new family, while throughout Britain, the search for the boy who lived continued. Chapter 2, Sanctuary and Discovery. The morning sun splashed across Harry's face as Whisper gently shook him awake. 6 months had passed since the night of his rescue, and the once scrawny 5-year-old had transformed. His cheeks had filled out, his eyes shone with confidence, and his magic, wild and untamed, had grown exponentially. Up, up, young wizard. Whisper chirped. Hookfang waits at training grounds. Says young wizard sleeps too much. Harry groaned and rolled over. 5 more minutes. Goblin warrior waits for no one, Whisper replied, yanking the blankets away with surprising strength. Even special wizard child. Harry jumped up, knowing from experience that Hookfang's patience lasted exactly as long as the morning mist, which was already burning away. He dressed quickly in the leather training clothes the goblins had crafted for him, grabbed a piece of fruit from the bowl beside his bed, and raced outside. The wild sanctuary buzzed with morning activity. Centaurs gathered by the lake for their dawn observances. Dragons circled high above, their scales catching the sunlight. House elves darted among the trees, carrying baskets and tools. In 6 months, this hidden valley had become more home to Harry than Privet Drive had ever been. He sprinted toward the eastern training grounds, weaving through clusters of pixies who deliberately tried to obstruct his path. Too slow, lightning boy, one called, zipping around his head. Harry grinned and held out his palm, summoning a small gust of wind that sent the pixies tumbling backward. That's cheating, they squealed in their high-pitched voices. That's adapting. Harry called back, never breaking stride. He reached the training ground just as Hookfang emerged from his dwelling, the goblin's armor glinting in the morning light. Late again, wizard child, Hookfang growled, though his eyes held a hint of amusement. Sorry, Harry panted. Whisper let me oversleep. Blame not others for your failings, Hookfang said, tossing Harry a wooden training sword. 10 circuits of the field. Now. Harry took off running, the wooden sword held properly at his side as he'd been taught. 6 months ago, he couldn't have made it around the field once. Now he completed the 10 circuits with only mild breathlessness. Better, Hookfang acknowledged when Harry finished. Your endurance improves. Now, defense positions. For the next hour, Harry practiced parrying Hookfang's increasingly complex attacks. The goblin moved with surprising speed for his stocky frame, wooden blade whistling through the air. Watch my eyes, not my blade. Hookfang barked as his sword slipped past Harry's guard, tapping him on the shoulder. Eyes tell the truth. Weapons can lie. Harry nodded, focusing on Hookfang's gaze rather than his sword. When the goblin attacked again, Harry saw the slight shift in eye direction and parried successfully. Good! Hookfang exclaimed, genuine approval in his voice. Now, again, faster. By the end of the session, Harry's arms ached pleasantly. He'd successfully blocked 7 of Hookfang's last 10 strikes, a personal best. "You learn quickly for a wizard child," Hookfang said, which from him was extravagant praise. "Tomorrow we begin offensive combinations." Harry beamed, bowing respectfully as goblin custom dictated. "Thank you, battle teacher." Hookfang returned the bow, then checked the position of the sun. "Midday approaches. River Scale awaits you at the lake." Harry grabbed a quick meal from the communal kitchens, a hearty vegetable stew prepared by the house elves, before heading to the lake for his afternoon lesson with the Mare Chieftain. River Scale floated near the shore in his magical water bubble, trident held regally at his side. Several other Mare people hovered nearby, their silver-green scales flashing beneath the surface. "Young Potter arrives," River Scale acknowledged. "Today we continue elemental combination work." Harry waded into the shallows, where the water reached his knees. Over months of training, he'd developed a special affinity for water magic, able to manipulate it with an ease that surprised even his teachers. "Remember," River Scale instructed, "water flows through all living things. It carries memory, conducts magic, sustains life. When you connect with water, you connect with the essence of magic itself." Harry nodded, closing his eyes and extending his hands palm down over the lake's surface. He felt for the familiar cool energy, the fluid power that responded so readily to his call. The water beneath his palms began to ripple, then rise in a twisting column. "Now add air," River Scale directed. This was harder. Harry's connection with air magic wasn't as natural as his water affinity. He concentrated, visualizing the air currents around the water column, coaxing them to join the dance. Slowly, the column began to spiral, wind and water intertwining. "Fire," River Scale prompted. Harry's brow furrowed with effort. Fire was his weakest element, unpredictable, resistant to his control. He reached for the heat in his core, the spark of magic that Firebrand had taught him to access. A tiny flame appeared at the top of the water spout, flickering uncertainly. Earth. With his final element, Harry touched the lake bottom with his foot, sending his awareness into the silt and stone. Particles of earth rose through the water column, darkening it, giving it substance and weight. The result was a swirling elemental vortex, water and air forming the structure, fire dancing at its peak, earth providing stability and form. It was beautiful, powerful, and quickly becoming unstable as Harry struggled to maintain 4 elemental connections simultaneously. "I can't," he gasped, feeling the construct begin to collapse. "You can," River Scale said firmly. "Find the balance point. All elements exist in harmony in nature. Your magic merely guides this natural balance." Harry took a deep breath, focusing not on controlling each element separately but on the connections between them, how water fed fire, how air supported water, how earth anchored them all. The vortex stabilized, spinning gracefully before him. "Well done," River Scale said, genuine approval in his voice. "Hold it as long as you can." Harry maintained the elemental construct for nearly 5 minutes before his concentration finally wavered. When it collapsed, the water fell back into the lake with a substantial splash, soaking him completely. The younger Mare people trilled with laughter, a sound like bubbling water. Even River Scale's stern expression softened. "Your endurance improves," the Mare Chieftain noted. "Soon we will add practical applications, weather manipulation, elemental shields, healing currents." Harry pushed his soaking hair from his eyes, grinning despite his exhaustion. "Can I learn to breathe underwater like you promised?" River Scale's expression grew serious. "That magic requires deeper connection, a merging of your life force with water itself. When Firebrand judges your core stable enough, we will begin." Harry nodded, understanding the caution. His magical core, already unusually powerful for his age, had continued to grow rapidly during his time at the sanctuary. This growth had not been without complications. Twice he'd experienced what Firebrand called magical surges, uncontrolled releases of power that had temporarily disrupted the sanctuary's ambient magic. After saying goodbye to River Scale, Harry headed back toward the Heart Tree for his evening lesson with Stargazer. He passed Whisper, who was organizing a group of house elves harvesting mushrooms. Young wizard all wet again. Whisper observed with a grin. Water magic still splashy. Harry laughed. Not as splashy as last week. I kept the vortex stable for 5 minutes. Very good. Whisper said proudly. Whisper saved special honey cakes for celebration. Harry's mouth watered at the thought. The house elves' honey cakes were one of his favorite treats in the sanctuary, sweet and light, with a hint of something floral that grew only in magical soil. He continued toward the Heart Tree, where he found Stargazer already setting up his celestial charts beneath the ancient oak's spreading branches. The centaur acknowledged Harry with a slight nod. Your aura ripples with elemental energy, Stargazer observed. River Scale pushes your boundaries. 4 elements at once, Harry confirmed, sitting cross-legged before the charts. Ambitious, Stargazer murmured. Perhaps too ambitious. Your core still stabilizes. I held it for 5 minutes, Harry said defensively. Stargazer's expression softened. I do not criticize, young one. I merely urge caution. Magic responds differently to children, more fluidly, but also more unpredictably. He pointed to the celestial chart spread before them. Tonight we discussed the proximal harmonies, the magical relationships between neighboring stars and their influence on Earth magic. Harry studied the chart, trying to see the pattern Stargazer described. Centaur astronomy was nothing like the human version. It focused less on physical properties of stars and more on their magical resonances and interconnections. The Cervine cluster, Stargazer explained, indicating a particular grouping, aligns with Jupiter this month. This strengthens protective magics, particularly those tied to home and sanctuary. Harry traced the pattern with his finger. Is that why the boundary wards have been more visible at night? I've seen them glowing blue along the northern ridge. Stargazer looked impressed. Your observation skills sharpen. Yes, the wards naturally strengthen during this alignment. Could we use that to reinforce the eastern boundary? Harry asked. Hook Fong says the Ministry patrols have been coming closer from that direction. A shadow crossed Stargazer's face. Yes. The wizard authorities grow bolder in their search. Their tracking spells probe our outer defenses daily. Harry felt a familiar knot of anxiety. 6 months had passed since his rescue, but the wizarding world's search for their missing savior had only intensified. The Daily Prophet, smuggled in regularly by goblin contacts, featured almost weekly articles about the hunt for Harry Potter and the creature conspiracy. They won't find us, right? Harry asked, trying to sound more confident than he felt. The sanctuary has hidden from wizard kind for millennia, Stargazer reassured him. But never before have they searched so persistently for one child. Because I'm the boy who lived, Harry said, not hiding his bitterness. Because you symbolize their triumph over darkness, Stargazer corrected gently. And because Albus Dumbledore fears what your absence means for his plans. Harry scowled at the mention of Dumbledore. From everything he'd learned, the headmaster of Hogwarts had been responsible for placing him with the Dursleys and had never once checked on his welfare in 4 years. I don't care about his plans, Harry said firmly. I'm not going back. Stargazer studied Harry thoughtfully. The future remains unwritten, young one. The stars show many paths, many possibilities. Your destiny intertwines with the wizard world, whether you wish it or not. I can make my own destiny, Harry insisted. The centaur smiled faintly. Perhaps. But remember that even stars, which appear fixed and eternal to human eyes, move in their own patterns across the celestial sea. None can escape the dance completely. Their lesson continued until twilight, when Silverhoof arrived for Harry's healing magic session. The unicorn's coat glowed softly in the gathering darkness, illuminating the area beneath the heart tree. "Good evening, young one," Silverhoof greeted. "Stargazer fills your mind with cosmic wisdom, I see." "And confusion," Harry admitted with a grin. "The best wisdom begins with confusion," Silverhoof replied. "Now, let us continue our work with healing energies." Where elemental magic with River Scale was dynamic and external, healing magic with Silverhoof was subtle and internal. Harry learned to sense the life force in plants and small creatures, to identify imbalances, to channel his own magic to restore harmony. "Place your hands here," Silverhoof instructed, indicating a small flowering plant that had begun to wilt. "Feel its struggle, its yearning for life." Harry gently touched the plant's leaves, extending his magical awareness into its cells. He sensed the blockage in its circulatory system, a tiny obstruction preventing nutrients from reaching the upper stems. "I feel it," he said softly. "It's like a knot in its stem." "Good. Now, offer your magic, not to force healing, but to invite it." This distinction had been difficult for Harry to grasp initially. Wizard healing, Silverhoof explained, often impose the healer's will upon the subject. Unicorn healing magic, by contrast, worked with the subject's own natural healing abilities. Harry closed his eyes, picturing his magic as a gentle green light flowing into the plant, surrounding the blockage, offering energy but not force. Gradually, he felt the plant's own magic respond, using his offered power to dissolve the obstruction. The plant straightened visibly, its wilting leaves perking up, colors brightening. "Excellent," Silverhoof approved. "You show remarkable sensitivity for one so young." "It feels different from elemental magic," Harry observed. "More connected." "Because it is," Silverhoof explained. "Elemental magic works with fundamental forces. Healing magic works with life itself, a delicate, sacred energy that must be respected, not commanded." Their session ended with Harry practicing on progressively larger plants. By the time darkness had fully descended, he was pleasantly tired, his magical reserves depleted but his spirit energized. As he headed back to his dwelling for dinner, Whisper met him halfway, the house elf's expression unusually serious. "Council gathering," Whisper said without preamble. "Important news." Young Wizard requested. Harry's weariness vanished instantly. Council gatherings outside their regular schedule usually meant trouble. He followed Whisper to the meeting dais beneath the heart tree, where the creature leaders had already assembled. Firebrand loomed over the gathering, her massive form partially hidden in shadow. Hookfang stood stiffly in full battle armor. Riverscale's water bubble seemed cloudier than usual, reflecting his agitation. Stargazer and Silverhoof had taken positions on opposite sides of the dais, their normally serene expressions replaced with concern. "What's happening?" Harry asked as he approached. Grimclaw, the ancient goblin elder, stepped forward. "Our contacts in the wizarding world bring troubling news, young Potter. The Ministry has enacted new anti-creature legislation, the Magical Being Control and Regulation Act. It restricts our movements further," Hookfang growled. "Requires registration of all non-human magical entities. Imposes curfews and territorial limitations. They claim it's for public safety," Riverscale added, trident clutched tightly. "But the true purpose is clear. They hope to flush me out," Harry realized. "By putting pressure on all magical creatures." Firebrand's rumbling voice confirmed his conclusion. "The wizard called Fudge is not subtle. He believes we hold you against your will. He thinks by squeezing our kind, we will surrender you to end the persecution." Harry felt sick with guilt. "This is my fault. They're punishing all of you because of me." "No," Silverhoof said firmly. "This law has been building for years. Your situation merely provided them the excuse they sought. The divisions between wizard kind and magical beings run deep and old," Stargazer added. "Your presence here is a symptom, not the cause." Grimclaw held up a copy of the Daily Prophet. The headline blared, "Minister Fudge, New Regulations Will Help Recover Potter." The paper quotes Dumbledore opposing these measures, the Goblin Elder noted. Publicly, at least. He argues they will only worsen relations with the very beings who might know of your whereabouts. Tactical disagreement only, Hookfang dismissed. Both want the same end, you back under wizard control. Harry read the article quickly. Minister Fudge claimed the creature conspiracy to hide Harry Potter represented the greatest threat to wizard security since you-know-who. Aurors would now have expanded powers to search creature territories and detain non-humans for questioning. There's more, Grimclaw continued gravely. Our sources report a new task force, Department 7. Officially, it investigates cross-species magical crimes. Unofficially, its sole purpose is finding you. Led by Alastair Moody, Firebrand added. A formidable wizard warrior with a particular talent for tracking. Harry looked around at the council members. What does this mean for the sanctuary? Are we in danger? Stargazer stepped forward. The sanctuary's primary defenses remain intact. However, Department 7 employs new detection methods, specialized tracking charms, creature informants, even Muggle surveillance devices modified with magic. They've located 3 smaller creature sanctuaries already, Hookfang reported grimly. Raided them without warning. Any creatures resist? Whisper asked, wringing his long fingers anxiously. Riverscale nodded solemnly. A centaur herd in Scotland refused Ministry entry to their territory. The confrontation turned violent. 2 centaurs were killed, several Aurors injured. A ripple of anger passed through the assembled creatures. Even Silverhoof, normally the most peaceful of the council, pawed the ground with one gleaming hoof, eyes flashing. We face a choice, Grimclaw stated. Strengthen our isolation, cut all contact with the outside world, reinforce our magical barriers. Or take a more direct approach, Hookfang finished, one hand resting meaningfully on his axe. Harry looked alarmed. You don't mean fighting? There are many ways to fight, young one, Firebrand rumbled. Not all involve fire and blade. The council debated strategies late into the night. Some advocated complete isolation, others suggested diplomatic outreach to sympathetic wizards. The more militant members, led by Hookfang, argued for protective strikes against Ministry outposts. Harry listened intently, struck by how much these discussions resembled the history lesson Stargazer had taught him about human political conflicts. Despite their different forms and abilities, magical creatures faced the same challenges as humans when threatened, the balance between security and freedom, between resistance and accommodation. Finally, around midnight, a compromise plan emerged. The sanctuary would strengthen its defenses but maintain limited contact with the outside world through trusted intermediaries. Small teams would monitor Ministry activities and warn other creature communities of impending raids. Most importantly, Harry's training would accelerate. The child must be prepared, Firebrand declared. If discovery comes, he must have the skills to protect himself and choose his own path. I want to help, Harry said firmly. This isn't just your fight. It's mine too. The council members exchanged glances. You are young still, Silverhoof said gently. I'm 6, Harry countered. And I've been training for months. I can do more than just hide. Hookfang gave a barking laugh. The wizard child shows goblin spirit. Good. Grimclaw raised a gnarled hand for silence. Potter has a point. His magical signature is what they track. Perhaps it can be used to mislead them. This sparked a new round of discussion about magical decoys and false trails. By the time the council adjourned, a plan had formed to create magical echoes of Harry's signature in remote locations, drawing Ministry resources away from the sanctuary's true location. As the gathering dispersed, Firebrand beckoned Harry to follow her away from the heart tree. They walked in silence until they reached a small clearing near the dragon's usual resting place. Your training intensifies tomorrow, hatchling, the dragon matriarch said without preamble. No more separate lessons with different teachers. Your magic must unify. Harry nodded, both excited and nervous. River Scale says my core is still unstable. It grows too quickly, Firebrand acknowledged. Like a hatchling whose wings develop before its body is ready to fly. We must balance your power before it overwhelms you. How? Firebrand lowered her massive head until one golden eye was level with Harry's face. Dragon magic, young one. Ancient binding techniques that will help you contain and direct your growing power. Harry's eyes widened. For months, Firebrand had deemed him not ready for true dragon magic, limiting his lessons to basic fire control and magical theory. You think I'm ready now? Ready? No, Firebrand admitted. But necessary? Yes. The Ministry's hunters draw closer each day. Better to risk training than capture. She raised her head again, looking toward the stars. Rest tonight, hatchling. Tomorrow we begin. In the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, Alastair, Mad-Eye, Moody slammed a gnarled fist onto the table, making the magical maps and tracking devices jump. 6 months, he growled at the assembled Aurors. 6 bloody months, and not one solid lead on the Potter boy. We've raided every known creature sanctuary in Britain, a junior Auror protested. The tracking charms keep giving us ghost readings. Moody's magical eye swiveled wildly, fixing each team member with its unnerving stare. Because we're being played for fools. These aren't random false positives. They're deliberate decoys. He stabbed a finger at the map where dozens of red dots indicated possible Potter sightings. Look at the pattern. Each appears just long enough to draw our resources, then vanishes before we can triangulate. That's strategy, not coincidence. The door opened, admitting Cornelius Fudge, the Minister for Magic, accompanied by Dolores Umbridge. Both looked distinctly displeased. Progress report, Moody, Fudge demanded without preamble. Moody's human eye narrowed. As I was just explaining, Minister, we're being led on a merry chase. The creatures have organized an impressive misdirection campaign. Excuses, Umbridge simpered in her girlish voice. Always excuses. Perhaps Department 7 needs stronger leadership. Moody's weathered face darkened. My Aurors are the best in the service, Dolores. The problem isn't effort but information. We're hunting blind. The new regulations should help with that, Fudge said, straightening his lime green bowler hat. Once we've registered all major magical beings, we can track their movements, identify suspicious patterns. If they register, Moody countered. So far, compliance has been minimal. And after that Centaur incident in Scotland, can you blame them? Fudge's expression soured. That was unfortunate, but necessary. We cannot allow magical creatures to shelter the boy who lived from his rightful guardians. And who might those be? Moody asked pointedly. The Muggles whose house was destroyed. Dumbledore, who left him there in the first place. Watch yourself, Alastair, Fudge warned. Questioning Dumbledore's judgment borders on questioning mine. Moody snorted but didn't push further. Instead, he turned back to the tracking map. We need to change tactics. Instead of chasing magical signatures, we should focus on magical anomalies, unusual concentrations of ambient power, unexplained magical dead zones. The DMLE budget is already strained, Umbridge objected. The Minister cannot justify additional expenditures without results. Then give me what I really need, Moody growled. Access to the Department of Mystery's archive on ancient magical sites. If these creatures are hiding Potter somewhere unplottable, it's likely in a location with historical significance. Fudge and Umbridge exchanged uneasy glances. That's highly classified, Fudge hedged. So is the fact that you've lost the boy who lived, Moody countered bluntly. After a tense silence, Fudge nodded reluctantly. Very well. Limited access, supervised by an unspeakable But I want results, Moody. The public grows restless. The prophet questions our competence daily. Can't imagine why, Moody muttered as the minister and his undersecretary departed. When the door closed, he turned back to his team. Right, you lot. New approach. I want every ancient magical site in Britain identified and surveilled. Focus on areas with historical connections to multiple magical species. That's hundreds of locations, one Auror objected. Then you'd better get started, Moody barked. The boy's out there, being raised by who knows what creatures, learning who knows what magic. The longer we take to find him, the less human he may be when we do. Dawn at the wild sanctuary found Harry standing atop Dragon's Crag, the highest point in the valley. Firebrand circled overhead, her massive wings creating gusts that whipped Harry's untidy hair. Focus, hatchling, the dragon called. Feel the currents, magical and physical. They are one to dragonkind. Harry closed his eyes, extending his magical senses as he'd been taught. After months of training, he could perceive the flow of magic around him, like invisible rivers of energy, constantly moving, shifting, interacting. Today's lesson pushed his sensitivity further. Firebrand wanted him to feel how wind currents and magical currents intertwined, how they could be manipulated together. Air feeds fire. Firebrand rumbled, demonstrating by diving suddenly, her wings creating a vortex that intensified the small controlled flame Harry maintained between his palms. The fire flared dramatically, nearly singing his eyebrows. Control, the dragon admonished. Dragon magic requires absolute control. Harry gritted his teeth, drawing the expanded flame back inward, compressing it until it burned blue-white with intensity. Sweat beaded on his forehead from the effort and heat. Good, Firebrand approved, landing beside him on the crag. Now, bind it to your core. This was the new element of his training, magical binding. Not suppression, as wizard magic often taught, but integration. Firebrand was teaching Harry to connect external magical manifestations directly to his core, creating a closed system that was both more efficient and more controlled. Harry visualized the connection, a line of power linking the flame to the swirling energy center within his chest. As the connection formed, he felt a peculiar sensation, as if the fire became an extension of himself rather than a separate creation. Yes, Firebrand encouraged, watching with keen eyes. Now you begin to understand. Dragon magic does not create fire, we are fire, as we are air, as we are magic itself. Harry maintained the connection for several minutes, marveling at how different it felt from conventional spellcasting. This wasn't forcing magic to do his bidding but becoming one with the magical element itself. When he finally released the binding, letting the flame dissipate naturally, he felt strangely invigorated rather than drained. That was amazing, he breathed. It didn't take nearly as much energy as usual. Because you were not fighting the magic's nature, Firebrand explained. You joined with it, directed its existing flow rather than creating a new one. Their lesson continued until midday, with Harry practicing binding progressively larger magical effects to his core. By the end, he could maintain a shield of swirling air and fire that encased his entire body, a dragon's defensive aura, Firebrand called it. As they descended from Dragon's Crag, they found Hookfong waiting at the base, his expression grim. Ministry raided another sanctuary, the goblin reported without preamble. Near Cornwall. 6 goblins arrested for obstruction. 2 wizarding sympathizers as well. Firebrand's eyes narrowed dangerously, small wisps of smoke curling from her nostrils. Casualties? None this time, Hookfong replied. But they're getting bolder. Using human hostages now to force cooperation. Harry felt the now familiar mix of anger and guilt. Was it Department 7? Yes. Moody himself led the raid. Firebrand turned to Harry. Your afternoon lesson with River Scale is cancelled. Instead, you will join the council meeting. It is time you understood the full political situation. An hour later, Harry sat among the creature leaders as they received reports from their various contacts in the wizarding world. The picture that emerged was deeply troubling. The Ministry's crackdown had expanded beyond Britain. International cooperation agreements meant that magical creatures were being monitored across Europe. Gringotts faced new security regulations that effectively placed goblin employees under constant surveillance. Centaur territories were being systematically mapped and restricted. House elves in prominent wizard households were being interrogated about their connections to free elves. They justify all this in the name of finding one child, Silverhoof said sadly. But the true agenda becomes clear: control, subjugation, isolation of our kinds from each other. Divide and conquer, Stargazer agreed. An ancient human strategy. Grimclaw unrolled a parchment covered with complicated runes. Our Gringotts operatives report that Department 7 has gained access to the Mysteries Archive. They study ancient magical sites, seeking our hidden sanctuaries. A ripple of concern passed through the council. The Department of Mysteries contained information dating back to the founding of the Ministry itself, including records of magical locations that had been deliberately erased from public knowledge. Could they find us? Harry asked worriedly. The sanctuary's location has been protected by magic older than the Ministry, Riverscale reassured him. But they may narrow their search to this region. We must accelerate our plans, Firebrand decided. The magical decoys have bought us time, but not enough. Hookfang nodded grimly. The Goblin Nation stands ready. At your signal, we can implement the Diaspora Protocol. Harry looked questioningly at the Goblin warrior. What's that? Emergency evacuation, Hookfang explained. Scattered relocation of all sanctuary residents to secondary safe locations throughout Britain and beyond. A last resort. The thought of the sanctuary, his home, being abandoned sent a chill through Harry. But where would everyone go? Where would I go? That, said Stargazer, depends on you, young one. Your training approaches a critical juncture. Soon you must decide whether to remain hidden or confront the wizard world on your own terms. Harry thought about this as the council continued discussing contingency plans. In 6 months, he'd learned more magic than most wizard children learn in years of conventional education. His abilities, a unique blend of creature magics and his own innate power, had grown exponentially. But was he ready to face Dumbledore? The Ministry? The entire wizarding world that had built him into a legend while abandoning him to abuse? The council meeting adjourned with increased security measures approved and preparations for possible evacuation initiated. As the creature leaders dispersed, Firebrand motioned for Harry to remain. There is another option we have not discussed openly, the Dragon Matriarch said once they were alone. One that Dumbledore himself may not have considered. What's that? Harry asked. You could choose to reveal yourself, on your own terms, in a manner and location of your choosing. Not to surrender, but to challenge their narrative. Harry frowned. You mean, like, go public? Tell everyone what really happened. Precisely. Firebrand's golden eyes glinted. Wizardkind searches for a victim, a child to be rescued from creature captivity. What if instead they found a young wizard proudly allied with magical beings? One who chose his path and defends it. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. Would that help? Or would it just make them try harder to save me? It would change the conversation, Firebrand said. From rescue to recognition. From, where is Harry Potter, to, who is Harry Potter becoming? Harry considered this. I'd need to be stronger first. More certain of my magic. Yes, the dragon agreed. Which is why your training must intensify further. No more separate disciplines. From tomorrow, your education integrates, goblin combat, centaur wisdom, elemental mastery, healing knowledge, house elf practicality, and dragon binding. Together. All at once? Harry asked, overwhelmed. All as one, Firebrand corrected. As they should be. as magic truly exists in the world. The following weeks brought a transformation in Harry's training regime. Rather than sequential lessons with different teachers, he now worked with all his mentors simultaneously, integrating their teachings into a unified magical practice. Mornings began with Hook Fong and Stargazer together, physical combat guided by astronomical positioning. Harry learned how planetary alignments affected strength and speed, how to time attacks to magical fluctuations in the environment. Strike now. Hook Fong would bark as Stargazer called out, Mars ascends. Harry would feel the surge of aggressive energy that accompanied the planet's magical influence, channeling it into a perfectly timed sword thrust or shield block. Midday brought River Scale and Silver Hoof, combining elemental and healing magics. Harry learned to infuse water with healing energy, to create restorative mists, to sense injuries through earth connection. The elements themselves wish to heal, Silverhoof taught. They seek balance naturally. Your magic merely guides this return to harmony. Afternoons belonged to Whisper and the House Elves, who taught him practical applications of his growing powers. How to move silently using air magic to cushion footsteps. How to blend with surroundings by matching his magical signature to the ambient energy. How to find food, water, and shelter in any environment. Survival magic more important than flashy spells, Whisper insisted. What good big magic if wizard child starves or freezes? Evenings culminated with Firebrand's binding lessons, where Harry learned to integrate everything he'd practiced throughout the day into his magical core. Each night, his control improved, his magical reserves deepened, and his confidence grew. 2 months into this intensive training, Harry achieved a breakthrough. During an evening session with Firebrand, he successfully bound all 4 elemental magics simultaneously, creating a protective aura that shimmered around him like heat haze, responsive to his will and emotions. Excellent, hatchling. Firebrand approved. Your core stabilizes at last. Harry grinned, maintaining the elemental binding with less effort than ever before. It feels different. Like the magic is finally listening properly. Not listening, Firebrand corrected. Harmonizing. Your natural magic and your learned techniques find common resonance. The dragon instructed him to test the aura's capabilities. Harry directed it to shield against physical objects. Firebrand tossed small stones that bounced off the shimmering barrier. Next, he modified it to filter air, creating a bubble of clean breathing space. Finally, at Firebrand's suggestion, he attempted something more complex, extending the aura to include another being. Whisper volunteered as test subject, stepping tentatively toward Harry's protective field. With careful concentration, Harry expanded the barrier, thinning it slightly but maintaining its integrity as it encompassed the house elf. Ooh! Whisper squeaked, looking around in wonder at the shimmering energy. Feels tingly. Good tingly. Remarkable, Firebrand commented. Most adult wizards cannot extend personal shields to protect others without significant magical drain. Harry held the expanded shield for several minutes before gradually dissipating it, feeling tired but deeply satisfied. Does this mean my core is stable now? He asked hopefully. More stable, Firebrand qualified. Your growth continues, but you now have the techniques to manage it properly. That night, a special celebration was held beneath the heart tree. The council formally recognized Harry's achievement, presenting him with gifts to mark his progress. From Hook Fong, a goblin-forged wrist guard inscribed with protective runes. Not all magic requires grand gestures, the warrior explained. Sometimes the smallest defenses matter most. From Stargazer, a pendant containing a fragment of meteorite. Star Stone, the centaur said simply. To help you navigate by celestial magic wherever you may travel. River Scale presented a small vial of shimmering liquid. Water from the deepest part of our lake, infused with mere magic. In dire need, it will grant you underwater breathing for 1 hour. Silverhoof contributed a single unicorn hair woven into a thin bracelet. For healing, she explained. Both of body and spirit. It resonates with purification magic. Whisper, beaming proudly, gave Harry a small leather pouch. House elf secret, he whispered. Bigger inside than outside. Hide important things here. Finally, Firebrand presented her gift, a scale from her own hide, polished to a gleaming black finish and set in a pendant matching stargazers. Dragon scale absorbs hostile magic, she explained. It will warn you of danger and shield against minor curses. Harry accepted each gift with genuine gratitude, overwhelmed by the tangible symbols of his bond with the magical creatures who had become his family. Thank you, he said simply, looking around at his teachers and friends. For everything. The celebration continued late into the night, with music, food, and displays of magical prowess from various creature groups. Harry demonstrated his new elemental aura to amazed onlookers, carefully controlling its intensity and range. As the festivities wound down, Harry sat with Whisper beneath the heart tree's sprawling branches, watching young dragons perform aerial acrobatics against the star-filled sky. Young wizard happy here, Whisper observed. Whisper remembers scared little boy from bad house. Different now. Strong now. Because of all of you, Harry said, adjusting the dragon scale pendant around his neck. I never had anyone care about me before. Creatures understand what wizards forget, Whisper said sagely. Magic not just for doing. Magic for connecting. Harry nodded thoughtfully. Stargazer says I'll have to face the wizard world eventually. When ready, Whisper agreed. Not before. Am I ready? Harry wondered aloud. Before Whisper could respond, a commotion erupted near the sanctuary's eastern boundary. Alarm calls echoed through the valley, high whistles from centaurs, deep horn blasts from goblins, a piercing trill from merpeople. Hookfang appeared, running full tilt toward the heart tree. Potter. Council gathering now. Emergency. Harry and Whisper raced after the goblin warrior, fear clutching at Harry's chest. They arrived at the council dais to find the creature leaders already assembled, their expressions grave. What's happening? Harry asked breathlessly. Grimclaw's ancient face looked more weathered than ever in the moonlight. The ministry has narrowed their search. Department 7 Aurors approached the outer boundaries. How many? Firebrand demanded. At least 20, Stargazer replied. Led by Moody himself. How did they find us? Riverscale asked, gripping his trident tightly. Hookfang spat on the ground. They haven't, not precisely. They searched the entire region, using new detection spells. But they draw closer with each passing hour. The Mysteries Archive, Silverhoof said softly. They must have found references to this valley's magical significance. What do we do? Harry asked, looking from one leader to another. Do we evacuate? Firebrand's massive form shifted restlessly. Not yet. Our primary wards hold strong. But we must prepare for all possibilities. They've established a base camp 5 miles east, Grimclaw reported. Their detection equipment grows more sophisticated. Sooner or later, they will identify magical anomalies consistent with a hidden sanctuary. We should strike first, Hookfang argued. Disable their equipment, confuse their tracking. Violence will only confirm their prejudices, Silverhoof countered. And bring more forces against us. As the council debated options, Harry felt a strange sensation from the dragon scale pendant against his chest. It grew noticeably warmer, pulsing with energy. Firebrand, he interrupted, holding up the pendant. Your scale, it's reacting to something. The dragon's yellow eyes narrowed. A warning. Hostile magic approaches. No sooner had she spoken than a centaur scout galloped into the clearing, breathing hard. Breach, he called. Eastern perimeter. Detection probe penetrated the outer ward. Impossible, Stargazer whispered. The wards have held for millennia. Not penetrated physically, the scout clarified. But magically. They've sent some kind of seeking spell through the boundary. It leaves traces like silver smoke. Harry's blood ran cold. A Patronus? The council members looked at him in surprise. Wizard spell, Harry explained. Stargazer taught me about them. They can carry messages, find people. Clever, Grimclaw acknowledged grimly. Patronus magic is pure positive energy. Our wards aren't designed to block beneficial magic. Can it find me specifically? Harry asked. If cast by someone with a connection to you, Firebrand confirmed. Blood relation or strong magical bond. Dumbledore, Harry muttered. It has to be. Hookfang barked orders to several goblin warriors. Strengthen the inner wards. Prepare defensive positions. No, Harry said suddenly, a plan forming in his mind. That's exactly what they expect. All eyes turned to him. The Ministry thinks creatures are holding me prisoner, right? That I need rescuing. Harry continued. So they expect resistance, secrecy, maybe even hostility. Stargazer nodded slowly. Your point, young one. So let's surprise them, Harry proposed. Instead of hiding or fighting. I'll meet them. Shocked exclamations erupted from several council members. Absolutely not. Hookfang bellowed. Too dangerous, Whisper agreed, tugging anxiously at Harry's sleeve. Firebrand silenced the protests with a low rumble. Let the hatchling speak. This matches what we discussed earlier, confronting wizard kind on our terms. Harry nodded gratefully to the dragon matriarch. If they're sending a Patronus, they're expecting to find me hiding, maybe hurt or scared. What if instead, the Patronus finds me healthy, happy, and surrounded by friends? What if, instead of them discovering me, I choose to reveal myself? Silverhoof's eyes widened. You would control the narrative. Exactly, Harry said. I'll go to the eastern boundary, not to escape or surrender, but to show them that I'm here by choice. That creatures aren't my captors but my teachers. And if they attempt to take you by force? Riverscale asked. Harry straightened, a confidence in his bearing that had been absent months ago. Then they'll discover what I've learned. Silence fell as the council considered Harry's proposal. Finally, Grimclaw spoke. The child speaks wisdom beyond his years, the ancient goblin acknowledged. Tactically, it has merit. Defense becomes diplomacy. But not alone, Firebrand insisted. You go with council protection. A delegation, Stargazer suggested. One representative from each major species. Gradually, a plan took shape. Harry, accompanied by select council members, would meet the approaching Patronus at the eastern boundary. Rather than hiding from the seeking spell, they would allow it to deliver its message and carry back word of Harry's welfare. A carefully crafted response would make clear that Harry remained under creature protection by choice, not coercion. As preparations began, Harry returned to his dwelling to change into the formal garments created for him by the house elves, a tunic of shimmering green material that complemented his eyes, embroidered with symbols of the various creature nations. He donned all the magical gifts he'd received that evening, feeling their reassuring presence against his skin. Whisper helped him prepare, fussing over his perpetually messy hair. Young wizard sure about this? Ministry wizards dangerous. Dumbledore powerful. I'm sure, Harry said, more confidently than he felt. I can't hide forever. Better to face them now, while I have all of you with me. An hour later, Harry stood at the eastern boundary of the sanctuary with his delegation, Firebrand representing Dragonkind, Hookfang for the goblins, Stargazer for the centaurs, Riverscale for the merepeople, supported in his water bubble, Silverhoof for the unicorns, and Whisper for the house elves. The boundary itself was marked by ancient standing stones, carved with runes so old that even Grimclaw couldn't translate all of them. Between these stones shimmered the nearly invisible magical barrier that had protected the sanctuary for millennia. The Patronus approaches, Stargazer announced, his keen eyes detecting what the others could not yet see, a silvery light moving through the forest beyond the boundary. Harry took a deep breath, centering himself as Firebrand had taught him. He felt for his magical core, ensuring it was stable and responsive. Then, making a decision that surprised even himself, he extended his elemental aura, not as a defensive shield, but as a visible manifestation of his magical growth. The shimmering energy surrounded him, green with flecks of blue, red, and gold representing the four elements. It wasn't threatening but certainly impressive, a clear demonstration that this was no ordinary 6-year-old wizard. "Bold choice, hatchling," Firebrand commented, approval in her rumbling voice. "If we're making a statement, let's make it clear," Harry replied. The silvery light grew brighter, finally emerging from the trees as a gleaming phoenix, Dumbledore's Patronus. It paused at the boundary, seemingly confused by the reception committee awaiting it. After a moment's hesitation, the Phoenix Patronus approached, passing through the boundary ward as if it weren't there. It circled the assembled delegation once, focusing particularly on Harry with his glowing elemental aura, before hovering before him. When it spoke, it used Dumbledore's voice, "Harry Potter. Are you well? Are you being held against your will? If you can answer, please do so. Help is nearby." The creature representatives tensed, but Harry remained calm. He looked directly at the Patronus, his green eyes reflecting its silvery light. "Headmaster Dumbledore," he replied clearly, "I am Harry Potter. I am healthy and happy. I am with the magical creatures by choice. They rescued me from the Dursley's abuse and have protected and taught me for 8 months now." The Phoenix Patronus hovered, apparently recording his response. Harry continued, the words coming naturally. "I know you're looking for me. I know the Ministry is pressuring magical creatures because of me. I'm not hiding anymore. I'll meet with you, but only with my friends present, and only on neutral ground." Hook Fong made a small noise of protest, but Harry pressed on. "If you want to talk, come to Stonehenge at midnight 3 days from now. Just you, no Ministry, no Aurors, no Department 7. My friends will know if you bring others." Harry paused, then added something he hadn't planned but felt was important. "And Professor Dumbledore? I know what you did. I know you left me with people who hated magic, who hurt me. I deserve an explanation." The Phoenix Patronus circled once more, then streaked away, presumably to deliver Harry's message to Dumbledore. As its silver light faded into the distance, Harry released his elemental aura, suddenly feeling drained, not just magically but emotionally. "That," said Hookfang with grudging respect, "was either very brave or very foolish." "Both, I think," Harry admitted. "Stonehenge?" Stargazer questioned. "A significant choice." "It seemed right," Harry explained. "It's an ancient magical site, neutral territory. The Ministry monitors it, but they can't restrict access completely because of the Muggle tourists." Firebrand's massive head dipped in approval. "Strategically sound. Open enough to prevent ambush, magically powerful enough to equalize any confrontation." "But Dumbledore is dangerous," Whisper fretted. "Most powerful wizard alive." "I'm not going to fight him," Harry assured the house elf. "Just talk to him. Make him understand that I choose to stay with you all. And if he doesn't accept your choice?" Riverscale asked, trident clutched tightly. Harry's expression hardened with determination that seemed out of place on his young face. "Then he'll learn that I'm not the helpless baby he abandoned on a doorstep anymore." News of Harry's message spread quickly through the sanctuary. Opinions divided sharply, many supported his direct approach, while others feared it would lead to confrontation with the wizarding authorities. Preparations began immediately for the Stonehenge meeting, with security arrangements, emergency escape plans, and diplomatic strategies all considered. Harry spent the next 3 days in intensive training, focusing particularly on defensive magic and rapid transport techniques. Firebrand worked with him on magical resilience, the ability to withstand powerful spells without losing focus or control. Dumbledore will not attack a child, the dragon assured him, but his magic is subtle and persuasive. He may attempt to influence your thoughts, cloud your judgment. Legilimency, Harry said, recalling Stargazer's lessons on wizard mind magic. Can he read my thoughts? Not easily, Firebrand replied. Your connection to creature magics has created natural shields around your mind. But stay vigilant. Maintain your core awareness as we've practiced. On the evening of the third day, hours before the midnight meeting, the final council gathering convened beneath the heart tree. Security arrangements were confirmed. Hookfang would lead a goblin guard detail, positioned discreetly around Stonehenge. Firebrand would circle high above, ready to intervene if needed. The other council members would accompany Harry directly. Remember, Grimclaw instructed Harry, you speak not only for yourself but for all magical creatures who have protected you. Your words will echo beyond this single meeting. No pressure, Harry murmured, attempting humor though his stomach churned with nervousness. As twilight deepened toward night, Harry prepared for departure. He dressed in the formal garments created for diplomatic occasions, donned his magical gifts, and took a moment to center himself beside the heart tree, drawing strength from its ancient presence. Whisper found him there, the house elf carrying a small package wrapped in leaves. Special treat, Whisper explained, handing it to Harry. Courage food. House elf tradition for important moments. Harry unwrapped the package to find a small cake made with honey and nuts. He took a bite, immediately feeling warmth spread through him, not magical, but comforting nonetheless. Thanks, Whisper, he said, smiling at his friend. For everything. Young wizard ready, Whisper declared with conviction. Not same scared boy anymore. Strong wizard now. Smart wizard. At 11 o'clock, the transportation party assembled. Since Harry couldn't apparate or create port keys, and Stonehenge had anti-transportation wards anyway, they would travel by more traditional creature methods, a combination of unicorn and centaur transport for the overland journey, followed by concealed approach on foot. Harry rode with Silverhoof, her unicorn magic making their passage swift and nearly silent. Stargazer and several other centaurs flanked them, while Whisper and Riverscale, in a mobile water bubble, followed close behind. Firebrand had already departed, flying high and invisible against the night sky. They arrived in the vicinity of Stonehenge with 15 minutes to spare. The ancient stone circle stood silhouetted against the starry sky, its massive trilithons creating distinctive archways that had channeled magic for millennia. No ministry presence detected, reported a goblin scout, materializing beside Hookfang. Only Dumbledore, arrived 5 minutes ago. Alone, as requested. Harry took a deep breath, suddenly very aware of his youth and small stature compared to the legendary wizard he was about to confront. Silverhoof sensed his anxiety and nuzzled his shoulder gently. Remember who you are, the unicorn said softly. Not just Harry Potter, boy who lived, but Harry of Concordia, friend to all magical beings. With a nod of determination, Harry stepped forward. His delegation followed, emerging from the shadows surrounding Stonehenge and approaching the ancient circle with deliberate visibility. In the center of the stone circle stood Albus Dumbledore, his long silver beard and hair gleaming in the moonlight. He wore midnight blue robes embroidered with silver stars, and his half-moon spectacles reflected the starlight as he turned to watch their approach. Harry had seen pictures of Dumbledore in books Stargazer had provided, but the reality was more imposing. The old wizard radiated power, a magical presence that seemed to fill the stone circle naturally, as if he belonged among these ancient megaliths. For his part, Dumbledore's eyes widened slightly at the procession approaching him, a small boy surrounded by magical creatures of various species, all moving with the dignified purpose of an official delegation rather than the furtive caution of fugitives. Harry stopped several yards from Dumbledore, his creature companions arranging themselves around him protectively but not threateningly. Headmaster Dumbledore, Harry said, proud that his voice remained steady. Thank you for coming alone. Dumbledore's blue eyes twinkled, though his expression remained serious. Harry Potter. I confess, this is not how I imagined our reunion. His gaze moved over the assembled creatures. You keep interesting company. These are my friends, Harry replied. My teachers. My family. Indeed. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. Most unusual. May I ask how this arrangement came to be? Harry felt Hookfang tense beside him but continued calmly. They rescued me from the Dursleys when I was 5. My uncle was beating me. My magic called out, and they answered. Dumbledore's face showed genuine shock. Beating you? Harry, I had no idea, didn't you? Harry interrupted, more sharply than he'd intended. You never checked. Not once in 4 years. Dumbledore seemed to age before Harry's eyes, his shoulders slumping slightly. I had monitoring charms, they should have alerted me to any serious abuse. They didn't work, Harry stated flatly. Or maybe you weren't listening. Either way, I was saved by magical creatures, not wizards. For which I am grateful, Dumbledore said carefully. Truly. But Harry, you must understand, the wizarding world needs you. Your place is with your own kind. Harry felt a flare of anger. My own kind? The ones who left me with abusers? Or the ones who are now persecuting magical creatures in my name? Stargazer placed a cautioning hand on Harry's shoulder. The boy took a deep breath, centering himself as Firebrand had taught him. I'm not coming back, Harry continued more calmly. Not to the Dursleys, not to the Ministry's custody. I'm learning more magic with my friends than I ever could locked in a cupboard under the stairs. Cupboard? Dumbledore repeated, looking stricken. That was my bedroom, Harry confirmed coldly. For 4 years. A heavy silence fell. Above them, clouds drifted across the moon, casting shifting shadows across the ancient stones. I have made a grave mistake, Dumbledore finally said, his voice heavy with regret. One for which I cannot adequately apologize. But Harry, there are considerations beyond your comfort and happiness, matters of your safety, your magical education, your destiny. You mean Voldemort, Harry said bluntly. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose higher still. You know of him? I know he killed my parents. I know there's a prophecy. I know he's not truly dead. You have been, thoroughly informed, Dumbledore acknowledged, glancing at the creatures surrounding Harry. More than you ever told me, Harry pointed out. You were going to wait until I was older, right? Keep me in the dark. To protect you, Dumbledore insisted. To give you a childhood. Harry laughed, a short, harsh sound without humor. Some childhood. Look, I didn't come here to argue about the past. I came to tell you to call off the Ministry. Stop persecuting magical creatures because of me. I have opposed Minister Fudge's new regulations consistently, Dumbledore assured him. But my influence has limits. Not good enough, Hookfang growled, speaking for the first time. Wizard persecution escalates daily. Sanctuaries violated. Creatures detained without cause. Dumbledore turned his gaze to the goblin warrior. And you are? Hookfang, battle teacher to Harry Potter, the goblin replied proudly. Warrior of the Horde. I see. Dumbledore's eyes moved to each creature in turn. A most eclectic education you're providing. Better than the Dursleys, Harry said firmly. Indeed, Dumbledore conceded. Yet incomplete, Harry. There are branches of magic these good beings cannot teach you, magic you will need when Lord Voldemort returns. You mean wizard magic, Harry said. Wand magic. Precisely. I've managed without it so far. To demonstrate, Harry summoned his elemental aura briefly, the shimmering green energy enveloping him for a few seconds before he dismissed it. Dumbledore's eyes widened appreciably. Extraordinary. Wandless elemental manipulation at your age. Most impressive. The hatchling learns quickly, came Firebrand's voice from above as the dragon descended to hover just beyond the stone circle, her massive wings creating gusts that whipped Dumbledore's robes and beard. His magic grows naturally, unconstrained by your rigid wizard categories. Dumbledore looked up at the dragon with remarkable composure, though his hand had moved slightly closer to his wand. A Hebridean black. Most unusual to see one so far south. I go where I choose, wizard, Firebrand rumbled. As does the hatchling. Dumbledore returned his attention to Harry. You have powerful protectors, it seems. Yet the question remains, what happens now? The Ministry will not simply cease looking for you because I ask them to. Then make them understand, Harry insisted. Tell them I'm safe, I'm learning, I'm happy. Tell them if they want me to ever return to Wizard Society, they need to stop hunting my friends. Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. A conditional return, then? You would consider rejoining the wizarding world under the right circumstances? Harry hadn't thought that far ahead, but the question made sense. Eventually, he would need to engage with Wizard Society, if only to face Voldemort as the prophecy suggested. Maybe, he allowed. When I'm older. But only if magical creatures are treated fairly. No more classifications as beings or beasts. No more restrictions on their territories. No more prejudice. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled more brightly. My dear boy, you ask for a revolution in wizard-creature relations. Yes, Harry said simply. That's the price. Take it or leave it. A long silence stretched between them. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted. You have changed, Harry, Dumbledore finally said. Grown in ways I did not anticipate. I came here hoping to persuade a child to return to his rightful place. Instead, I find a young diplomat with remarkably firm convictions. So what will you do? Harry pressed. Dumbledore sighed deeply. I will speak to the minister. I will make it clear that you are not being held against your will, that coercive measures will only drive you further from Wizard Society. I cannot promise an overnight revolution, but I can begin the conversation. Not good enough, Hookfong growled again. It's a start, Harry countered, placing a hand on the goblin's armored shoulder. To Dumbledore, he said, we need more than words. We need action. Call off Department 7. End the raids on creature territories. Release the creatures who've been detained. That is beyond my direct authority, Dumbledore admitted. But perhaps a compromise is possible. He considered for a moment. What if you were to meet with select ministry officials? Allow them to see for themselves that you are well and choosing your path freely. The creatures exchanged glances. A trap, Riverscale suggested from within his water bubble. Possibly, Stargazer acknowledged. Yet also an opportunity. On neutral ground, Harry stipulated. With my friends present. And with magical guarantees of our safety. Dumbledore nodded slowly. I believe that could be arranged. An unbreakable vow, perhaps, to ensure good faith on all sides. And in return, Silverhoof spoke for the first time, her melodious voice carrying clearly in the night air, the ministry must immediately suspend its anti-creature regulations pending review. A substantial demand, Dumbledore noted. But not unreasonable, given the circumstances. He turned back to Harry. I cannot promise the minister will agree, but I will present your terms forcefully. Harry studied the old wizard's face, searching for signs of deception. Finding none, he nodded slowly. Okay. If the minister agrees, send word through Gringotts. The goblins will ensure I receive the message. Very well. Dumbledore hesitated, then added, Harry, regardless of our disagreements, I want you to know I am genuinely relieved to see you safe and thriving. Your parents would be proud of your courage and conviction. The mention of his parents caught Harry off guard. He blinked rapidly, fighting sudden emotion. You knew them well? Very well indeed, Dumbledore confirmed. Your father was exceptionally loyal to his friends. Your mother had a remarkable capacity for love and a talent for seeing the best in others, even those society rejected. His eyes moved meaningfully to the creatures surrounding Harry. In that, it seems, you take after her. Harry wasn't sure how to respond to this unexpected personal turn. After a moment, he simply nodded. Thank you for telling me that. There is much more I could tell you, Dumbledore offered. About your parents, your heritage, your place in our world. When you're ready to hear it. Maybe someday, Harry allowed. But right now, I need to know you'll keep your word about the ministry. You have it, Dumbledore assured him. I will contact you through Gringotts within 3 days, regardless of the minister's response. With formal goodbyes exchanged, the meeting concluded. Harry and his delegation withdrew first, maintaining vigilance until they were safely beyond the ancient stone circle. As they prepared for the journey back to the sanctuary, Hookfang approached Harry, the goblin's expression troubled. You trust the old wizard's word? He asked bluntly. Harry considered the question. Not completely. But I believe he was shocked by what happened to me at the Dursleys. And I think he's smart enough to realize forcing me back would be a mistake. Humph, Hookfang grunted, unconvinced. Wizards are skilled deceivers. That's why we'll be careful, Harry assured him. We haven't agreed to anything specific yet. Just opened a conversation. As they traveled back to the sanctuary, Harry found himself replaying the meeting in his mind. Dumbledore had been both more and less than he expected, more human in his evident regret, less intimidating in his willingness to negotiate. The old wizard clearly had his own agenda, but he'd seemed genuinely shocked by the revelations about the Dursleys. Dawn was breaking as they reached the sanctuary, casting golden light across the valley. Harry, exhausted but satisfied, headed straight for his dwelling beneath the heart tree. Whisper accompanied him, fussing over his tired state and insisting he eat something before sleeping. Young wizard did well, Whisper declared proudly. Stood up to most powerful wizard in Britain. Very brave. I was scared, Harry admitted, accepting a cup of warm herb tea from the house elf. Brave not same as not scared, Whisper countered wisely. Brave means doing anyway. Harry smiled, sipping his tea. Do you think it will work? Will Dumbledore convince the ministry? Whisper's large ears drooped slightly. Maybe yes, maybe no. Wizard stubborn. But young wizard changed something tonight. Showed different way. As Harry drifted toward sleep, he reflected on how much had changed in the 8 months since his rescue from Privet Drive. From a frightened, abused child to a diplomatic representative for magical creatures, it was a transformation he could hardly have imagined. Outside his dwelling, the council members gathered for a post-meeting assessment. Their discussion continued long into the morning, evaluating risks and opportunities, preparing for all possible ministry responses. But one conclusion was unanimous: Harry Potter had proven himself not just a student of magical creatures but a true ally, one who might yet bridge the ancient divide between wizard kind and the magical beings they had long oppressed. And high above the sanctuary, Firebrand circled in the morning light, her keen eyes watching for any sign of pursuit, her ancient heart filled with pride for the hatchling who had stood his ground before Albus Dumbledore, and perhaps changed the course of magical history in doing so. Chapter 3, The Battle at the Threshold. The promised message from Dumbledore arrived 2 days after the Stonehenge meeting, not via Gringotts as arranged, but carried by a magnificent phoenix that materialized in a burst of flame above the heart tree. Harry, practicing air manipulation with a group of young griffins, spotted the bird first. Fox, he breathed, recognizing Dumbledore's familiar from Stargazer's descriptions. The phoenix circled once before dropping a sealed parchment. It fluttered down, landing directly in Harry's outstretched hands. The magical bird then perched on a nearby branch, apparently waiting for a response. Within minutes, the council had gathered. Harry broke the ornate wax seal bearing Dumbledore's personal crest and read aloud, Harry, I have spoken at length with Minister Fudge regarding our meeting. While initially resistant, he has agreed to a formal dialogue under specific conditions. The minister proposes a gathering at the International Confederation of Magic's neutral territory in northern Scotland 3 days hence. He will bring a delegation of 5, including himself, Madam Bones, head of DMLE, and 3 Wisengamot representatives. You may bring an equal number of your creature allies. As requested, Department 7 operations have been temporarily suspended pending this meeting. Several detained magical beings have been released as a show of good faith. I have taken the extraordinary step of making an unbreakable vow that no attempt will be made to detain or control you during this meeting. The minister and his delegation will make similar magical oaths. Please send your response with Fox. If you agree, detailed coordinates will follow. In hope of reconciliation, Albus Dumbledore Chief Warlock, Wisengamot. A tense silence followed Harry's reading. Suspicious timing, Hookfang growled, armored hand resting on his axe. How so? Harry asked. Our scouts report increased ministry activity near the southern boundary, the goblin warrior explained. Not Department 7, regular Auror patrols. They circle but do not approach. Firebrand's eyes narrowed to golden slits. A two-pronged strategy. Official diplomacy while maintaining pressure. Or simple precaution, Stargazer countered. The ministry would naturally position forces nearby while their leaders engage in negotiations. Harry read the letter again, weighing each word. Dumbledore says he made an unbreakable vow. That's serious magic, right? He'd die if he broke it. Yes, Riverscale confirmed from within his water bubble. An extraordinary concession from one so powerful. But note the precise wording, Grimclaw pointed out, his ancient eyes sharp. No attempt to detain or control you during the meeting. What about after? What about your creature allies? Harry frowned. So it could still be a trap, just not for me directly. Or it could be genuine, Silverhoof suggested. Dumbledore seemed genuinely disturbed by your treatment at the Dursleys. Wizards excel at appearing regretful while pursuing their original intentions, Hookfang said bitterly. Harry turned the parchment over in his hands. We need to decide soon. Fawkes is waiting. The council debated intensely. Some argued for rejecting the meeting outright, seeing it as too risky. Others supported accepting, believing diplomatic engagement was the only path to lasting protection. Still others suggested a counter-proposal with stricter terms. After nearly an hour of discussion, Harry raised his hand for silence. Though only 6, his time at the sanctuary had given him confidence beyond his years. I think we should go, he said firmly. But with precautions. We can't hide forever, and this might be our best chance to change how wizards treat magical creatures. The risk is considerable, Grimclaw warned. So is doing nothing, Harry countered. The ministry won't stop searching just because we ignore them. Firebrand's rumbling voice supported Harry's position. The hatchling speaks wisdom. Better to face wizard kind on terms partially of our choosing than wait for them to find us unprepared. Gradually, the council reached consensus. They would accept the meeting but with additional conditions, expanded protective oaths, a neutral third party to witness proceedings, and magical guarantees for all participants, not just Harry. Harry penned the response himself, his handwriting still childish but his words carefully chosen with Stargazer's guidance. Fawkes accepted the sealed response, vanishing in another burst of flame. Now we prepare, Hookfang declared, already shifting into battle readiness despite the diplomatic nature of the agreement. For all possibilities. The next 3 days saw the sanctuary transform from a peaceful haven to a vigilant fortress. Defensive preparations occupied everyone, from the youngest fairy to the eldest dragon. Escape routes were established, emergency portkeys created, though they wouldn't work for Harry due to his unique magical signature, and battle strategies formulated. Throughout it all, Harry continued his training with renewed intensity. Firebrand pushed his binding magic to new limits, teaching him to maintain multiple elemental protections simultaneously. Hookfang drilled him relentlessly in evasive movement and defensive postures. Riverscale refined his control over water manipulation, particularly useful for creating obscuring mists or defensive barriers. On the eve of the scheduled meeting, Dumbledore's final communication arrived, containing coordinates and one significant update. Due to scheduling conflicts, Minister Fudge would not attend personally but would send Dolores Umbridge, Senior Undersecretary, in his place. A calculated insult, Stargazer observed when this news was shared. Umbridge is notoriously anti-creature. Strategic positioning, Grimclaw countered. If negotiations fail, Fudge maintains deniability. Harry, exhausted from a day of intensive preparation, struggled to focus on these political nuances. Does this change our plans? It increases risk, Firebrand stated bluntly. Umbridge would sacrifice any creature without hesitation if it served wizard interests. Despite these concerns, the Council's decision held. The delegation would depart at dawn. Harry, Firebrand, Hookfang, Stargazer, Silverhoof, and Whisper would represent the sanctuary. Riverscale would remain behind as acting leader, coordinating defense if anything went wrong. That night, Harry found sleep elusive. He sat outside his dwelling beneath the heart tree, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Tomorrow would likely determine not just his future but the relationship between magical creatures and wizards for generations. Young wizard should rest, came Whisper's gentle admonishment as the house elf appeared beside him. Can't sleep, Harry admitted. Too much thinking. Whisper settled beside him. Thinking solves nothing tonight. Tomorrow needs clear head, strong magic. What if it all goes wrong? Harry voiced his deepest fear. What if they try to take me anyway? What if someone gets hurt because of me? What if sky falls? What if lake dries up? Whisper countered with gentle mockery. No good worrying about maybe things. Despite himself, Harry smiled. You sound like Stargazer. House elf wisdom different from centaur wisdom, but both right sometimes, Whisper said sagely. After a pause, he added, Whisper brings something for young wizard. Help with sleep. From his tunic, the house elf produced a small vial containing an iridescent liquid. Unicorn sleep dew. Silverhoof's gift. Gives peaceful rest, no dreams. Harry accepted the vial gratefully. Thanks, Whisper. For everything. The house elf's large eyes shimmered in the starlight. Young wizard changed all creatures' lives. Brought unity where was division. Whatever happens tomorrow, that remains true. With Whisper's reassurance and Silverhoof's magical sleep aid, Harry finally found rest. He dreamed despite the potion's promise, not nightmares of capture or battle, but vivid images of a possible future, magical creatures walking openly among wizards, Harry himself older and stronger, bridging two worlds that had been separated too long. Dawn broke clear and cold over the sanctuary. Harry dressed in formal attire crafted by the most skilled among the magical beings, a tunic of deep green embroidered with symbols of each creature nation, durable leather pants designed for movement, and a short cloak that shimmered with protective enchantments. Around his neck hung both pendants, Stargazer's meteorite fragment and Firebrand's dragon scale, while his wrists bore Hookfang's guard and Silverhoof's unicorn hair bracelet. You look like a proper ambassador, Stargazer approved when Harry joined the delegation at the Heart Tree. Ambassador Potter, Hookfang tested the title with gruff amusement. The wizards won't know what hit them. The agreed meeting location lay in northern Scotland, an ancient stone circle on ICW-controlled territory, heavily warded for diplomatic encounters. Since Harry couldn't apparate or use port keys, transportation required creativity. Firebrand would carry Harry, Whisper, and Hookfang directly, while Stargazer and Silverhoof would use centaur pathways, magical routes through forests that connected distant groves. As final preparations concluded, Grimclaw approached Harry with a small, rune-covered stone. A last precaution, the ancient goblin explained. A warning beacon. If danger threatens, crush it between your palms. Every warrior in the sanctuary will know instantly. Harry pocketed the stone, hoping fervently he wouldn't need it. Goodbyes were brief, the entire sanctuary had gathered to see them off, but lengthy farewells seemed too ominous, too final. Moments later, Harry experienced his first dragon flight. Perched between Firebrand's massive shoulder blades, Whisper clinging tightly behind him and Hookfang secured before him, he felt the enormous creature launch skyward with breathtaking power. Wind whipped his face as they soared above the protective wards, the sanctuary shrinking rapidly below. "Hold tight, hatchling," Firebrand called over the rushing air. "We fly high and fast." The journey north took nearly 2 hours, even at Firebrand's impressive speed. They traveled above cloud level to avoid detection, emerging only when Firebrand sensed they neared their destination. Below stretched the rugged Scottish Highlands, wild and largely uninhabited, perfect territory for a discreet diplomatic mission. Firebrand circled once before descending toward a small valley where an ancient stone circle stood, smaller than Stonehenge but similar in design. Even from above, Harry could see figures waiting within the circle. His heart hammered against his ribs. "Remember your training," Hookfang said over his shoulder. "Show strength but not aggression. Speak clearly. Give no ground unnecessarily." They landed a respectful distance from the stone circle. Moments later, Stargazer and Silverhoof emerged from a nearby grove, having traveled the centaur pathways. "The wizard delegation arrived 10 minutes ago," Stargazer reported, his keen eyes having assessed the situation immediately. "Dumbledore, Umbridge, Bones, and 2 Wizengamot members I recognize from wanted posters, Greengrass and Diggory." "Decent selection," Hookfang grunted. "Greengrass is neutral practical. Diggory has proven fair to magical beings in the past." "And Umbridge?" Harry asked. Hookfang's face darkened. "A venomous toad in pink clothing. Watch every word with her." The delegation approached the stone circle together, presenting a united front. Harry walked slightly ahead, a calculated position suggested by Grimclaw to emphasize his role as bridge between worlds rather than captive or controller. Inside the circle stood 5 wizards. Dumbledore, immediately recognizable in midnight blue robes, stood centered. Beside him, a squat woman in a revolting shade of pink could only be Umbridge. An imposing witch with a monocle and severe expression, presumably Madame Bones, stood to Dumbledore's other side. The 2 remaining wizards, Greengrass and Diggory, maintained neutral expressions. Harry noted the subtle positioning of wands, not drawn but accessible. Despite unbreakable vows, the wizards had come prepared for trouble. So had they. Harry stopped at the edge of the stone circle, his delegation fanning out slightly behind him. Magic hummed in the ancient stones, neutral territory indeed, but power-soaked ground that would amplify any magic cast within. "Harry," Dumbledore greeted, stepping forward. "Thank you for coming." "Headmaster Dumbledore," Harry acknowledged formally. His gaze moved to each wizard in turn. "Madame Umbridge, Madame Bones, Mr. Greengrass, Mr. Diggory." Surprise flickered briefly across their faces. Clearly, they hadn't expected a 6-year-old to recognize them or address them with such composure. Umbridge recovered first, her wide mouth stretching into a smile that didn't reach her cold eyes. "My goodness, such a clever little boy. One might almost forget you've been missing from proper wizarding supervision for nearly a year." Her simpering tone made Harry's skin crawl, but he kept his expression neutral. "I haven't been missing, Madam Undersecretary. I've been learning." "Learning what, precisely?" Madame Bones asked, her tone professional but not unfriendly. "And from whom?" Harry gestured to his companions. "Combat and strategy from Hookfang, warrior of the Goblin Horde. Astronomy and divination from Stargazer, elder of the Centaur Nation. Healing magic from Silverhoof of the Unicorn Herds. Practical skills from Whisper, free elf of the Sanctuary. And from Firebrand, Dragon Matriarch, I've learned magical binding and elemental control." The wizards exchanged glances, impressed despite themselves, Harry thought. An unconventional education, Madam Bones remarked carefully. Better than a cupboard under the stairs, Harry replied, his green eyes fixing on Dumbledore momentarily. The headmaster had the grace to look discomfited. Umbridge, however, made a small dismissive noise. Childish exaggeration, no doubt, she simpered. Children often invent stories when they've been influenced by creatures with their own agendas. Firebrand's massive head swung toward Umbridge, golden eyes narrowing dangerously. Choose your next words with extreme care, Pink Wizard. Before tensions could escalate further, Dumbledore stepped forward. Perhaps we should proceed to the formal purpose of this gathering. As agreed, all participants will now make magical oaths regarding their intentions. What followed was an elaborate exchange of magical vows. The wizard swore to make no attempt to capture, control, or harm Harry or his companions during the meeting. The creatures, in turn, vowed peaceful conduct. Harry, as central figure, made a unique oath, to speak truthfully and consider all proposals in good faith. With formalities concluded, substantive discussion began. Madam Bones took the lead, outlining the ministry's official position. Mr. Potter, while we acknowledge your unusual circumstances, certain fundamental facts remain unchanged. You are a British wizarding citizen, a minor under wizarding law, and a figure of significant importance to our society. Because I didn't die when Voldemort tried to kill me, Harry stated bluntly. Several wizards flinched at the name. Umbridge made a small, outraged noise. Dumbledore's eyes, however, twinkled with something like approval. Precisely, Bones continued, recovering quickly. Your welfare is a matter of national importance. The ministry cannot simply allow you to remain outside wizarding society indefinitely, particularly in the company of my friends. Harry supplied when she hesitated. Magical beings traditionally considered problematic, she finished diplomatically. Hookfang snorted derisively but remained silent as agreed. I understand your concern, Harry said carefully, employing the diplomatic phrasing Stargazer had taught him. But I hope you understand mine. The people who were supposed to protect me, my relatives, abused me. The wizard who placed me there, he glanced at Dumbledore, never checked on me. The only ones who came when I needed help were magical creatures. A regrettable situation, Diggory spoke for the first time, his honest face showing genuine concern. One that clearly requires remedy. But surely there are wizarding families who could provide a proper home. Maybe, Harry acknowledged. But that's not the only issue. The way wizards treat magical creatures, classifying them as beings or beasts, restricting their movements, limiting their rights, it's wrong. I won't come back to a society that oppresses my friends. Umbridge's toad-like face darkened. Such inflammatory language from one so young suggests undue influence. These creatures have clearly filled your head with propaganda against your own kind. My own kind? Harry repeated, anger flaring. My own kind left me with abusers. My own kind created Department 7 to hunt down those who saved me. Which kind should I prefer, Madam Umbridge? A tense silence followed. Greengrass, who had remained silent until now, cleared his throat. Perhaps we're approaching this incorrectly, he suggested, his aristocratic features composed. Mr. Potter clearly has legitimate grievances. Rather than dismissing them, we might consider addressing the underlying issues. What exactly are you suggesting, Cyrus? Umbridge asked with barely concealed irritation. A compromise, Greengrass elaborated. Mr. Potter's eventual return to wizarding society, but with guarantees regarding both his personal welfare and improved treatment of magical beings. Dumbledore nodded approvingly. A sensible approach. Harry's concerns merit serious consideration, not dismissal. Umbridge's smile tightened. The minister has authorized me to offer certain accommodations. Mr. Potter would be placed with a suitable wizarding family, not his previous guardians. Department 7 would be disbanded. In return, he would attend Hogwarts when of age and submit to regular ministry check-ins until then. And the anti-creature legislation? Harry pressed. Select provisions could be reviewed, Umbridge offered reluctantly. Not good enough, Harry said firmly. All the new regulations need to be suspended immediately. A joint wizard-creature committee should review all magical being laws. And I decide where I live, not the ministry. Umbridge's fake smile vanished completely. You are a child. You do not dictate terms to the Ministry of Magic. I'm a child who survived Voldemort, Harry countered, deliberately using the name again. A child your newspapers call, the boy who lived. A child who apparently matters enough for you to create an entire department just to find me. Seems like my terms should count for something. Madame Bones couldn't entirely suppress an impressed expression. Diggory coughed in what sounded suspiciously like concealed laughter. Even Greengrass's lips twitched momentarily. Dumbledore intervened smoothly. Perhaps a short recess would be beneficial. The delegation from the sanctuary may wish to confer privately, as might we. The group separated to opposite sides of the stone circle. Once out of earshot, Hookfong spoke first. They offer crumbs while demanding the whole loaf, the goblin growled. Typical wizard arrogance. Yet they have made concessions, Stargazer observed. More than I expected, frankly. Umbridge lies with every breath, Firebrand rumbled quietly. She would promise anything to get the hatchling into their control, then renege immediately. Harry frowned, considering their position. I think Greengrass and Diggory might genuinely support compromise. Bones seems fair, if cautious. It's really Umbridge who's the problem. And Dumbledore? Silverhoof asked gently. He's playing his own game, Harry decided after a moment. He wants me back in the wizarding world, but he seems to actually care about my welfare now. And he definitely doesn't like Umbridge. Whisper, who had remained characteristically quiet during the formal proceedings, tugged at Harry's sleeve. Young wizard not mention most important thing. What's that? Harry asked. What young wizard wants, the house elf said simply. Not what creatures want. Not what wizards want. What Harry Potter wants. The question caught Harry off guard. What did he want? He'd been so focused on protecting the creatures who had saved him, on preventing a return to abuse, that he hadn't fully considered his own deeper desires. I want. He began slowly. I want to learn all kinds of magic, creature and wizard. I want to understand who my parents were and why Voldemort targeted them. I want to help change how wizards treat magical creatures. And someday. I guess I want to face Voldemort and stop him for good. His companions exchanged significant glances. Those are wizard goals and creature goals together, Stargazer noted approvingly. A bridgewalker's path. Then that's what we negotiate for, Firebrand decided. Not just concessions on existing points, but a new framework entirely. When the discussions resumed, Harry approached with renewed clarity. Rather than merely responding to wizard proposals, he presented his own vision. He would maintain his primary residence at the sanctuary but would attend Hogwarts when of age. He would have wizarding guardians who would visit him at the sanctuary rather than him living with them. A joint wizard-creature committee would be established to review all magical being legislation, with actual creatures as equal participants, not just subjects. The wizard delegation received these proposals with mixed reactions. Umbridge looked apoplectic. Bones appeared thoughtful. Greengrass and Diggory exchanged calculating glances, apparently assessing political implications. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled with what seemed like genuine pleasure. These are substantial demands, Madame Bones observed carefully. They're not demands, Harry corrected. They're invitations. I'm inviting the ministry to build something better than what existed before. How eloquently put, Dumbledore murmured. Umbridge could contain herself no longer. This is absurd. We cannot allow a child, particularly one of Mr. Potter's importance, to dictate revolutionary changes to magical law. Nor can we permit him to remain primarily among potentially dangerous creatures. They're only dangerous to people who threaten them, Harry pointed out. Or me. The ministry cannot appear weak, Umbridge insisted, turning to her colleagues. The wizarding public expects us to recover the boy who lived, not negotiate with his abductors. They didn't abduct me, Harry said sharply. They rescued me. A distinction the prophet would blur immediately, Greengrass noted pragmatically. Public perception remains a significant factor. Then change it, Harry suggested. Tell the truth. Show people that magical creatures can be allies, not just servants or threats. The discussion continued, growing increasingly heated as Umbridge resisted every substantive concession while the other wizards showed varying degrees of openness to compromise. Throughout, Harry maintained the composed diplomatic approach Stargazer had taught him, but his patience wore thin as Umbridge repeatedly characterized his creature friends as manipulative, dangerous, or inferior. After particularly venomous comments about half-breeds from the pink-clad witch, Harry decided on a direct demonstration. Without warning, he summoned his elemental aura, the shimmering green energy infused with all 4 elements that he'd perfected under Firebrand's tutelage. The wizards fell silent, staring at the magical display. Even Dumbledore seemed impressed by the control and power evident in a 6-year-old performing wandless elemental magic. This is what my manipulative friends taught me, Harry said quietly, the aura pulsing gently around him. Not to hate. Not to fear. But to connect with magic directly, to understand it rather than just use it. He extended his hand, and the aura expanded, forming shapes in the air, a phoenix, a dragon, a unicorn, before contracting back around him and dissipating completely. I'm not rejecting the wizarding world, Harry continued into the stunned silence. I'm trying to make it better. For everyone. Before anyone could respond, a piercing alarm cut through the air. The stone in Harry's pocket, Grimclaw's warning beacon, had activated without being crushed. Something was very wrong at the sanctuary. Simultaneously, a silvery Patronus, some kind of weasel, darted into the circle and spoke in a man's urgent voice, unauthorized DMLE operation in progress at coordinates 57-35-12 north, May 22, 48 west. Multiple casualties reported. Requesting immediate intervention. The coordinates were unmistakable, the sanctuary's location. Horror dawned on Harry's face as he pulled out the now glowing warning stone. You promised. He accused, rounding on the wizard delegation. You swore an unbreakable vow. And we have honored it, Dumbledore responded gravely. But it seems others have acted without our knowledge or approval. Or with very careful timing, Hookfang snarled, axe suddenly in hand. Madame Bones looked genuinely shocked. I authorized no such operation. Department 7 was suspended as agreed. Not Department 7, Firebrand growled, her keen senses having detected more from the Patronus than the others. Aurors. Regular DMLE forces. Umbridge's face showed momentary satisfaction before she smoothed it into false concern. How dreadful. Perhaps some overzealous subordinate, or perhaps someone who knew exactly when the sanctuary's strongest defenders would be absent, Stargazer interrupted coldly. Someone high in the ministry who opposed our negotiations from the start. All eyes turned to Umbridge, whose toad-like features showed no remorse. You arranged this, Harry realized, anger building. You kept us talking while Aurors attacked our home. I did no such thing, Umbridge simpered. Though if authorized ministry personnel have located an illegal gathering of dangerous creatures, they would naturally take appropriate action. Hookfang snarled, stepping toward Umbridge with murderous intent. Silverhoof and Whisper looked equally outraged. Firebrand's enormous body tensed, wings half-spreading. Before violence erupted, Madame Bones stepped forward, wand drawn but pointed downward. As head of the DMLE, I formally disavow this operation. Dolores, if you have circumvented proper channels to authorize an enforcement action during diplomatic negotiations, you have committed a serious breach of protocol. I've done nothing illegal, Umbridge maintained, though her eyes darted nervously to the enraged magical creatures. The minister himself approved contingency operations if negotiations failed. They haven't failed. Diggory exclaimed, looking appalled. We were making progress. Semantics, Umbridge dismissed. Harry felt magic building inside him, raw, angry power responding to the threat to his home and friends. The stones beneath his feet began to tremble slightly, responding to his emotional surge. Harry, Dumbledore said quietly, control your magic. Anger, however justified, will not help your friends now. With supreme effort, Harry reined in his power, focusing instead on practical action. We need to go. Now. We'll come with you, Bones declared firmly. To countermand this unauthorized operation. Umbridge's eyes bulged. You cannot possibly side with creatures against the Ministry. I side with law and proper procedure, Bones countered coldly. Something you appear to have abandoned, Dolores. I'll come as well, Dumbledore added. My presence may help prevent further violence. Greengrass and Diggory exchanged glances before Diggory spoke. As Wisingamot representatives, we should witness this situation directly. Too long have we relied on filtered reports regarding magical being affairs. Umbridge found herself isolated, her scheme unraveling. This is treason, she sputtered. The minister will hear, yes, he certainly will, Bones interrupted. Every detail. Now, shall we proceed to the sanctuary, or would you prefer to remain here alone? Transportation presented a challenge. The wizards could apparate near the sanctuary but not into it due to protective wards. Harry and his companions needed to return as they had come. A compromise was reached. Bones would apparate with Dumbledore, creating a magical beacon the others could follow. Greengrass and Diggory would transport together, while Umbridge, after considerable protest, would be escorted by Bones's Auror bodyguard who had been waiting discreetly nearby. We'll meet you there, Harry told them, already climbing onto Firebrand's back with Whisper and Hookfang. Look for the southern ridge. Firebrand launched skyward immediately, flying faster than before despite the added weight. Her powerful wings beat the air furiously as she pushed herself to maximum speed. Riverscale will have organized defenses, Hookfang shouted over the wind. The inner sanctum should hold even against Aurors. Harry nodded grimly, clutching the dragon's scales as they sped southward. His mind raced with terrible possibilities. Who had been hurt? How many Aurors had breached the sanctuary? Could the Hidden Valley's ancient protections withstand a concentrated wizarding assault? The journey felt interminable, though Firebrand covered ground far faster than their outbound trip. As they approached the sanctuary's general vicinity, smoke became visible rising above the tree line, a horrifying sight that confirmed their worst fears. There! Stargazer called, having rejoined them via centaur pathways alongside Silverhoof. The eastern entrance has been breached. Firebrand circled once, assessing the situation from above. What they saw was chaotic but not yet catastrophic. A group of perhaps 30 Aurors had penetrated the outer wards and were engaged with sanctuary defenders at the eastern approach. The fighting appeared contained to that area, with the Heart Tree and inner dwellings still secure. They haven't reached the central valley, Firebrand reported. Riverscale has established a defensive line at the Narrowing. The Narrowing, a natural bottleneck where the eastern path constricted between two steep ridges, provided an ideal defensive position. Even from above, Harry could see goblins, centaurs, and other creatures maintaining a solid barrier against the advancing Aurors. Land behind our lines, Hookfang instructed. We need to coordinate with Riverscale before those wizard allies of yours arrive. Firebrand descended rapidly, touching down in a clear area beyond the Narrowing. The sounds of battle carried clearly, spell fire, war cries, the clash of weapons. Harry jumped down, immediately surrounded by surprised defenders. Young wizard returns, a goblin scout exclaimed. With Firebrand and the council members. Riverscale approached in his mobile water bubble, trident gleaming with recent use. Potter. The attack came without warning. Aurors breached the outer wards using some new form of curse-breaking. Umbrage, Harry explained quickly. She arranged it while we were negotiating. How bad? 6 defenders injured, none killed yet, Riverscale reported grimly. The Aurors seem to be operating under capture rather than kill orders, using stunning spells primarily. Small mercy, Hookfong growled. Wizard allies follow, Stargazer informed Riverscale. Bones, Dumbledore, and 2 Wisengamot members. They claim to oppose this action. Can they stop it? Riverscale asked skeptically. Bones can, Firebrand rumbled. She commands these Aurors directly. Harry looked toward the narrowing, where flashes of spelllight illuminated the growing dusk. We need to end this before anyone else gets hurt. Where's Grimclaw? Coordinating interior defenses, Riverscale replied. Preparing evacuation if the narrowing falls. Harry straightened, decision crystallizing. I'm going out there. Absolutely not. Hookfong barked. They're here for me, Harry insisted. If I show myself, they'll have to stop attacking. Or capture you immediately, Stargazer countered. Not with Dumbledore and Bones watching, Harry argued. And not with all of you behind me. Before further objections could be raised, the distinctive cracks of apparition announced their wizard allies' arrival. Dumbledore appeared first with Bones, followed moments later by Greengrass and Diggory. Umbridge and Bones's Auror bodyguard materialized last, the pink-clad witch looking distinctly motion-sick. Madam Bones. Harry called. Your Aurors are attacking our home. Bones surveyed the situation quickly, her monocle gleaming in the fading light. Unauthorized operation indeed. I see at least 3 squad formations, this was carefully planned. She turned to her bodyguard. Williamson, your emergency override insignia. The Auror handed her a small badge, which Bones tapped with her wand. It glowed blue briefly before emitting a piercing whistle that carried over the sounds of battle. At the narrowing, the fighting paused momentarily as Aurors recognized their commander's signal. Bones strode forward purposefully, her authoritative presence parting the defenders. Harry and the others followed close behind, with Dumbledore, Greengrass, and Diggory joining them. Only Umbridge remained behind, suddenly finding herself without allies. Cease operations immediately. Bones's magically amplified voice echoed through the valley. By order of the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. The Aurors hesitated, wands still raised but spells suspended. Their commander, a grizzled wizard with a scarred face, pushed forward. Madam Bones, he questioned, clearly confused. We're operating under direct orders from the minister's office. Countermanded, Bones stated flatly. This operation was not properly authorized through DMLE channels. But Senior Undersecretary Umbridge acted without jurisdiction, Bones interrupted. Stand down, Dawlish. Now. The Auror commander looked torn, gaze moving from Bones to the creature defenders to Harry standing prominently among them. Finally, he lowered his wand. Stand down, he ordered his forces. Defensive positions only. A collective exhale seemed to pass through both sides as wands lowered and weapons lowered. The immediate crisis averted, Harry stepped forward beside Bones. No one else needs to get hurt, he announced, his young voice carrying surprising authority. I'm Harry Potter. I'm the one you came for. But I'm not a prisoner, and these creatures are my friends. Murmurs rippled through the Auror ranks. Many were seeing the boy who lived for the first time, not the frightened captive they'd imagined, but a composed child standing confidently among magical creatures. Potter's speaking under compulsion, an Auror called out. Creatures are controlling him. I'm not under any compulsion, Harry replied firmly. I came to the sanctuary willingly after these creatures saved me from abusive relatives, the ones Albus Dumbledore left me with. He gestured to the headmaster, who inclined his head in acknowledgement. Harry speaks the truth, Dumbledore confirmed, his powerful presence adding weight to the statement. I made a terrible mistake in his placement, which these magical beings corrected at great risk to themselves. Another wave of mutters passed through the Auror ranks. The narrative they'd been given, rescuing a kidnapped child from dangerous creatures, was unraveling before their eyes. Seizing the moment, Harry summoned his elemental aura again, not aggressively, but as clear evidence of his magical development. The shimmering energy surrounded him, visible proof that this was no ordinary child. This is what I've learned at the sanctuary, he announced. Not dark magic. Not creature manipulation. Just different approaches to magic that wizards have forgotten or ignored. To demonstrate further, he extended the aura slightly, creating small manifestations of each element, a flame dancing above one palm, water swirling above the other, earth particles orbiting one arm, gentle air currents ruffling his hair. The display impressed even the battle-hardened Aurors. Wandless elemental manipulation was rare among adult wizards, nearly unheard of in children. Enough theatrics, Bones said, though not unkindly. The situation is clear. This operation was based on false premises and improper authorization. All Auror forces will withdraw immediately. And what of the creatures? Dawlish asked uncertainly. The minister's directives regarding unregistered magical being sanctuaries will be reviewed, Greengrass interjected smoothly. The Wisingamot has not been fully informed of the circumstances surrounding these so-called creature havens. Today's events suggest a more nuanced approach is required. Indeed, Diggory agreed. What we've witnessed contradicts official ministry characterization substantially. Dawlish looked uncomfortable but nodded. We'll withdraw to the perimeter, Madam Bones. Outside the perimeter, Bones corrected firmly. Beyond the outer wards entirely. As the Aurors began to retreat, Harry turned to the sanctuary defenders. Is everyone okay? Anyone need healing? Riverscale approached. Minor injuries mostly. Silverhoof's apprentices are attending to them. Tension gradually dissipated as Aurors withdrew and defenders stood down. Diplomatic discussions resumed, now with the weight of recent events lending urgency to negotiations. Dumbledore suggested moving to the Heart Tree for formal talks, a significant concession, allowing wizard representatives into the sanctuary's inner sanctum. After brief consultation with Grimclaw, who had emerged from coordinating interior defenses, Harry agreed. As they walked toward the central valley, Harry noticed Umbridge attempting to slip away with the retreating Aurors. Where's she going? He asked, pointing. Bones turned sharply. Williamson, escort Madame Umbridge back to the ministry. She is to remain in your custody until I return for a full investigation. Umbridge's protests faded as she was firmly escorted away, her scheme to undermine negotiations thoroughly defeated. The Heart Tree's massive presence dominated the central valley, its ancient branches spreading protectively over the gathered council. Wizards and creatures alike seemed humbled by its palpable magical aura, living history that had witnessed countless rises and falls of magical civilizations. Under its branches, with the Council of Concordia assembled on one side and the wizard delegation on the other, negotiations resumed with new perspective. Recent events make our decision simpler, Bones began pragmatically. The ministry's position is untenable. We cannot justify forcibly removing Mr. Potter from caregivers who demonstrably have his best interests at heart, particularly when our own placement failed him so dramatically. Yet neither can we simply cede all authority over a wizarding child of his significance, Greengrass countered. Some formal arrangement must be established. Harry listened as the adults debated his future. Unlike at the Stone Circle, where discussion had been theoretical, here in the sanctuary, with evidence of battle still visible and injured defenders being treated nearby, the stakes felt viscerally real. Perhaps, Dumbledore suggested thoughtfully, we are approaching this from an outdated paradigm. We speak of custody as if it must be binary, either wizard or creature. What if instead we recognized a new category altogether? What do you mean? Diggory asked. Shared guardianship, Dumbledore elaborated. Formal recognition of the sanctuary as Harry's primary residence, with designated wizarding representatives having visitation rights and educational input. Neither side possessing exclusive control, but both acknowledged as having legitimate interest in his welfare. Firebrand's rumbling voice approved this concept. The hatchling belongs to neither world exclusively but bridges both. His guardianship should reflect this reality. Gradually, a framework emerged. The sanctuary would receive formal recognition as a protected magical location with diplomatic status similar to Centaur territories or Merfolk waters. Harry would remain there primarily, learning from both creature mentors and visiting wizard tutors to prepare him for eventual attendance at Hogwarts. A joint wizard-creature committee would oversee his education and welfare, while simultaneously reviewing existing magical being legislation. Most significantly, the attack on the sanctuary would be officially documented as an unauthorized operation based on false information, setting precedent for challenging the Ministry's unilateral actions against magical creatures. As evening deepened into night, the provisional agreement took shape. Much remained to be detailed, but the fundamental direction was clear: neither surrender nor continued conflict, but a new path forward, one that recognized the legitimacy of both wizarding concerns and creature rights. It's a beginning, Stargazer observed as formal discussions concluded. Not an end. The hardest work comes next, Hookfong agreed grudgingly. Making wizards honor their promises. Harry, exhausted but relieved, watched as Bones, Greengrass, and Diggory prepared to depart. They would return to the Ministry to begin the complex process of implementing the agreement, starting with formally countermanding all Department 7 operations and suspending the recent anti-creature legislation pending review. Dumbledore, however, lingered. Might I have a word with Harry alone, he requested of the council. After brief consultation, they agreed, though alone meant with Whisper remaining nearby, a compromise Dumbledore accepted graciously. When the others had moved away, Dumbledore sat on a natural stone bench near the heart tree, gesturing for Harry to join him. For a moment, they sat in silence, the ancient wizard seemingly collecting his thoughts. You have accomplished something remarkable today, Harry, Dumbledore finally said. Something I failed to recognize as possible, genuine cooperation between wizards and magical beings as equals. It almost didn't happen, Harry pointed out. If Umbridge had her way, but she didn't, Dumbledore interrupted gently. Because you chose to demonstrate rather than just argue. You showed what was possible rather than merely claiming it could be. Harry considered this. The elemental magic, you mean? That, Dumbledore agreed, but more importantly, your presence itself, a wizarding child thriving among magical beings, learning their ways without losing his own identity. You are living proof that our separate worlds need not remain so divided. Is that why you didn't push harder to take me back? Harry asked, the question that had been nagging at him. You could have. You're powerful enough. Dumbledore sighed deeply. Power is not wisdom, Harry. I wielded great power when I placed you with the Dursleys, believing blood protection paramount above all else. That decision, however powerful the magic supporting it, was profoundly unwise. He gazed up at the heart tree's sprawling canopy. Today, I chose wisdom over power. Your thriving here speaks more eloquently than any argument I could make. What about Voldemort? Harry asked quietly. The prophecy? Everyone says he'll return someday. Indeed, Dumbledore acknowledged gravely. And when that day comes, you will need both wizarding and creature magic to face him. Perhaps that is why events unfolded as they have, preparing you in ways none of us could have foreseen. Harry nodded thoughtfully. Stargazer says the stars show many paths, not just one. Wise Centaur perspective, Dumbledore approved. And why I've come to believe your place is indeed here, for now. He smiled slightly. Though I do hope you'll still consider Hogwarts when you turn 11. The school would benefit from your unique perspective. I will, Harry promised. Part of building bridges is actually crossing them sometimes. Dumbledore chuckled. Eloquently put. Your mother had a similar gift for distilling complex ideas into elegant phrases. You knew her well? Harry asked eagerly. Well enough to recognize her compassion in you, Dumbledore replied. And your father's courage. But those are stories for another visit, perhaps. You'll come back? Harry asked, surprised. If I'm welcome, Dumbledore said carefully. There is much I could teach you about wizarding magic to complement your creature education. And, he added with twinkling eyes, much you could teach me about perspectives I've overlooked in my long life. As they concluded their conversation, Whisper approached with refreshments, a gesture of hospitality that Dumbledore accepted gratefully. The house elf's initial wariness had softened slightly, though he remained protectively close to Harry. Whisper brings evening tea, he announced. Special blend for important wizard guests. Most kind, Dumbledore said, accepting the steaming cup. After a sip, his eyebrows rose appreciatively. Extraordinary flavor. May I ask the composition? House elf secret, Whisper replied with dignity, though Harry detected a hint of pride in his voice. As night fully descended on the sanctuary, the remaining wizard representatives departed, leaving the council to assess the day's momentous events. Guards remained posted, trust would build slowly, but the immediate crisis had passed. Harry, drained both magically and emotionally, sat beneath the heart tree with his closest friends, Hookfang, Stargazer, Silverhoof, Whisper, Riverscale, and Firebrand. Above them, stars glittered in patterns that Stargazer insisted were particularly auspicious. The centaur bow aligns with Jupiter, he observed. A configuration that heralds new beginnings. Or just pretty lights in the sky, Hookfang grunted, though without his usual dismissiveness. The stars are what they are, Firebrand rumbled philosophically. What matters is that we survived today's challenge and emerged stronger. We established a precedent, Riverscale added. Never before have creature rights been formally acknowledged in ministry negotiations. And young wizard showed great courage, Whisper said proudly. Stood before wizards and aurors without fear. I was scared, Harry admitted, leaning against Silverhoof's warm flank. I just didn't let it stop me. True courage, the unicorn said softly. As conversations continued around him, Harry felt his eyelids growing heavy. The day's events, diplomatic negotiations, the surprise attack, intense magical demonstrations, more negotiations, had depleted even his substantial reserves. Seeing his exhaustion, Whisper helped him to his feet. Young wizard needs rest. Tomorrow brings new challenges. And new possibilities, Stargazer added. Harry nodded sleepily, allowing Whisper to guide him toward his dwelling. Before leaving the circle, he turned back to his friends, his family, these extraordinary beings who had answered his desperate call that night at Privet Drive. Thank you, he said simply. For everything. Firebrand lowered her massive head to Harry's level, golden eyes gleaming in the starlight. Sleep well, hatchling. Your journey has only just begun. In the days and weeks that followed, the provisional agreement solidified into formal arrangements. Ministry representatives visited the sanctuary under strict protocols, documenting its educational methods and protective capabilities. The Joint Wizard Creature Committee formed, beginning the arduous process of reviewing centuries of magical being legislation. Daily life at the sanctuary gradually returned to normal, though with new additions. Wizard tutors visited regularly, introducing Harry to wand-based magic as a complement to his creature training. Books arrived from Hogwarts, sent by Dumbledore himself, covering subjects from history of magic to potions. Reports in the Daily Prophet evolved from sensationalist headlines about Potter held by creatures, to more nuanced coverage of Boy Who Lived Bridges' magical worlds. Public opinion shifted gradually as carefully managed interviews revealed the truth about Harry's rescue from abuse and his thriving in the sanctuary. Umbridge faced an inquiry over her unauthorized operation, ultimately being reassigned to a minor regulatory department, punishment considered woefully inadequate by the sanctuary residents but still a public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Most significantly, wizard-creature relations began a slow transformation. The recent anti-creature legislation was suspended pending review, with several provisions permanently repealed. Gringotts goblins reported improved treatment in ministry interactions. Centaur territories received expanded recognition. House elf advocates gained unprecedented access to policy discussions. Small changes, perhaps, against centuries of prejudice. But beginnings matter. For Harry Potter, life settled into a new rhythm, mornings with his creature mentors, afternoons with wizarding tutors, evenings with friends from both worlds. His magic continued to develop along unique pathways, combining traditions thought incompatible for generations. The prophecy still loomed. Voldemort would return someday. The wizarding world still had expectations for their boy who lived. But now Harry faced these challenges with something he'd never had at Privet Drive: choice. The power to determine his own path, supported by allies who valued him for himself, not just his destiny. On a warm summer evening, almost a year since his rescue, Harry sat high on Dragon's Crag with Firebrand, watching the sunset paint the sanctuary in gold and crimson. Below, centaurs practiced archery alongside a visiting wizard teaching broomstick techniques. House elves prepared communal evening meals while goblins demonstrated metalworking to fascinated wizard apprentices. "Did you know this would happen?" Harry asked the dragon matriarch. "When you answered my call that night?" Firebrand rumbled thoughtfully. "No, hatchling. Dragons see far, but even we cannot glimpse all futures. Do you think it will last? This new arrangement?" "That," Firebrand said with ancient wisdom, "depends largely on you. Bridgewalkers bear heavy responsibility. They must maintain connections on both shores, never fully belonging to either, yet essential to both." Harry nodded, understanding growing within him. Not just a wizard. Not just a creature friend. Something new, a bridge between worlds that had been separate too long. "I'm ready," he said, watching the first stars appear above the valley. And he was. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.